Listen, you smell something?
Human emotions are materializing in the form of a viscous psychoreactive plasm with explosive supernormal potential.
What a discovery, a psychoreactive substance.
Do you know what this equipment is used for?
Boggle or Super Mario Brothers?
We'll have fun!
Yeah! They're still doing it. Really quite good work there.
My friend, don't be a jerk.
We've got no choice. Call the Ghostbusters.
Super Jackpot!
Welcome to Extraplasm Podcast. It's the only podcast on the internet that knows where to find parking within a 5-minute walk of Hook and Ladder 8 for less than $20, including valet. I'm your host, Jim Maritato, aka Think Maniac on the internet, and I'm freshly back from Ghostbusters Day in New York City. Joining me on the podcast this week as we break the format and go through everything that went on Ghostbusters Day weekend is a legend, an awesome person, a Canadian. If I hear the crowds roaring right now in the background, I believe it might be Jason Fitzsimmons of Ghostbusters News. Jason, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well. Are you okay? You're very rambunctious. You're excited this week. I mean, I know you just came back from NYC, but just simmer down a little bit. Calm down. It's gonna be fine.
I mean, to be fair, I've drank a lot of coffee in the last few days. I've had to do a lot of driving. It's kind of been odd to re-embrace driving the I-95 corridor, which is kind of like driving through Endor. If you have to drive through New England in June, everything is super green. But I've certainly drank a lot of coffee, so that might be why. But I'm also excited because it's been Ghostbusters Day. You're absolutely right. Because why wouldn't that be exciting?
Here's the thing. I think you and I are having two different reactions to Ghostbusters Day. You're riding this high, and I have this post Ghostbusters Day kind of slum. Like when you come back from a convention or a big event, and you've had all this excitement, and now the following days it's just blah. You're just in it. You're waiting for the next big thing, and that's how I kind of feel right now.
See, I can appreciate that. By the same token, I'm excited because I get to talk to you. I haven't seen you to talk to you about anything that's gone on for Ghostbusters Day. And I had to answer the question all weekend long of, where's Jason? I was like, he's not here. So I have been sort of anticipating talking to you because I didn't get a chance to process through any of the things that went on, for Ghostbusters Day weekend. And there might be some people out there who say, well, what really went on? We're going to talk about the things that went on. There's plenty of things that went on, even if they weren't, a sudden trailer for the animated series that I was hoping to see, but I digress. But I'm excited because you're here. That's part of why I'm excited. So, if you bring Canadians near me, I get very excited, I guess. It might just be you though. So
if you bring Canadians to you,
I don't know.
Okay. All right. I'll digest that a little bit. But yeah, next year, if I wind up not going to the New York event and you go, I'll get a shirt made. It'll just be almost like a missing milk carton on it with my face. And that can just be your answer to people. You can just point to the shirt.
Do you want me next year to go and just be like your decoy? I can shave my head and I can grow a beard and dye it red and just, lose 50 pounds and then just go as you. I'll just wear glasses and people they'll be like, hi, it's Ghostbusters News. And I'll go, yes, I am.
No. See, I'm Canadian. I think you're forgetting that fact now all of a sudden. I mean, you just mentioned it, but if anything, I'm going to be the nice one and I'm going to become you. I'm going to grow my hair out. I'm going to shave my face. I'm going to put, contacts in my eyes and I'll just be Jim.
What if it's like Gift of the Magi style and we both go and do this and then I go as you and you go as me?
Okay. I get it. I get it there. I mean,
yeah, this would actually be really ridiculously funny cosplay if we were to go somewhere together dressed as the other one. Now, this is something we have to accomplish in our lives. I'm just saying, but maybe you'll disagree. But
no, I'll be down for that.
Well, that's good because otherwise you were going to continue to be the Oscar to my Ghostbusters Felix about being excited and rambunctious, which,
For the youngins out there, the 13, 14-year-olds that said hello to Jim in New York City, just so you know, that's a reference to The Odd Couple, a Jack Lemmon, Walter Matthau flick. They made two of them. They had a series. There was a Broadway play, television show. It's great.
Yeah, it's great. I was specifically referencing the television show, to be fair. I wasn't going all the way back to Jack Lemmon and Walter Matthau, but thank you for making me feel incredibly old.
Oh, you were going to the Matthew Perry?
No, not that. That's
because they had one with Matthew Perry, right?
I don't know. Maybe. I can't remember.
Oh, okay.
Now.
You're going with the other. No, why are you going with The Odd Couple but not choosing Jack Lemmon and Walter Matthau? They were the best versions.
Because all right, now this is a point where we've already derailed the podcast within the first 6 minutes. But because I watched a lot of the Odd Couple like television show late at night at my grandmother's house as a child, right after Saturday Night Live, it would come on at like 1:00 in the morning on some channel instead of Showtime at the Apollo. So I watched a lot of the Odd Couple on TV.
Did Oscar throw the spaghetti on the TV series? Like, did it like slam and make a big mess on the wall? Did that happen?
I don't know.
Okay,
I don't remember. But
next week we're canceling the show and we're going to do a live broadcast of our commentary of the Odd Couple, 1970s hit.
I'm doing a spin-off podcast. It's just going to be a watch-along podcast with the entire television series of The Odd Couple. That's what's going to happen next. So, well, we need to get into talking about what's gone on over the last few days, because there really is a lot of great stuff to talk about. And, you know, we've said repeatedly, and I think over the last few months, that it's a great time to be a Ghostbusters fan. And I think that this weekend, at least for me, being there in New York was indicative of that, because, I mean, I don't know what you saw at home, but being there on the ground, I don't think I've seen so many Ghostbusters fans all in one place at once ever in my life. Like it was an enormous turnout that actually made the premiere turnout at the firehouse look small.
Yeah, I mean, from all the photos that I saw in the videos and such, it just looked ridiculous. And I mean, I kind of expected this going in, the fact that it was the 40th, and there was just a different level of hype this year when it came to it. Like, even though I didn't really see like the official Ghostbuster channels really hyping it up or anything like they've done in previous years, it just seems like when it comes to the fans this year, almost everybody, they were making the trip. You know, there was at least a couple members from almost every franchise. They were making, you know, the voyage to New York City there. Yeah, I mean, it was insane from the photos and the videos I saw of it.
We'll get into things, I think, linearly in a minute and kind of talk about what went on the 7th, because there were a couple things that happened before Ghostbusters Day proper that were really important, including what went on in Los Angeles with the LA Ghostbusters. But, you know, I interacted with fans from all over the world this weekend, without question. Like, I met folks from like the Yellow Rose Ghostbusters who were kind of pilgrimaging to the firehouse and stopping along the way and seeing like Stranger Things locations on the way. I met people from Australia. I met people from England. I met people from Italy. I mean, I met people from so many different places this weekend that it just really indicates like how much Ghostbusters is a global phenomenon, you know, that like, and it's not even like an event that was being run by the studio. Just fans decided they needed to come and be with other fans from around the world. And so it's really kind of cool to interact with, I have to say. But yeah, we should probably talk about things in terms of the order they happened, I guess, right?
Yeah, I would say so.
That seems like a good way to tell a story. So let's talk about sort of the LA Ghostbusters event first, because if you didn't see this, the LA Ghostbusters, of course, had their City Hall event happening in Los Angeles, where the city of Los Angeles proclaimed Ghostbusters Day to be June 8th. And Jason Reitman came out and gave a speech and talked about the importance of charity and whatnot. And they kind of talked about this new wave of fundraising that's going to be happening with Starlight Foundation. So this is really cool, really awesome opportunity. And what I thought was really awesome about it, like, I'm not going to lie, was that the actual OG Ecto-1 was there. Like, for the 40th anniversary celebration at City Hall, they didn't bring one of the newer cars, which clearly run very well because they put them in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, they got, you know, as the Ectotech, our friend Greg Hilliard would refer to it, the mothership, and got the mothership down at City Hall. So, Jason, what'd you think about this sort of event out at the LA Ghostbusters event out at City Hall?
I mean, for me reporting on it, I was confused at first because it was like, hey, we're gonna commemorate Ghostbusters Day. We're gonna proclaim this Ghostbusters Day, but it's June 7th. So every time I posted about it, I had people being like, no, you're wrong. It's not the right day. It's not the right day. But once I got after that hump, or, you know, from that hump, I love it. I love the fact that they're continuing their efforts with Starlight. These children gowns, now they're going to be slimed with these new renditions that are coming out. They look great. And I love the cause. I love the work that the LA Ghostbusters, they've been doing. And I mean, of course, with the first time there was 25, 30 different like individual franchises. I mean, Extraplasm was one of them that helped out with that first, the fundraising efforts there. So I'm hoping that they're going to do something similar with these as well. But I think it's awesome and amazing cause. I love the fact too that in terms of Jason Reitman's presentation, the LA initiative, that first fundraiser was called out because it's, again, such an amazing cause.
Yeah. And, you know, it's kind of nice to say this, that, like, you know, not that it wasn't a group effort, but I really do think it's important that LA gets a little bit of credit, because one of the things that I've done every time they came on the podcast was to go, take some credit for the thing you're doing. And every single time they would say, no, it's a group effort and everybody's contributing. And so, to sort of have Jason Reitman acknowledge that, yes, Ghostbusters fans in general are doing it, but to kind of acknowledge this unique impact that LA's had in building this bridge with Starlight, I think is really cool, So it was a really great way to kick off the weekend, because here we are celebrating the 40th anniversary, and we're not just looking at, oh, the movie's great, we care about the toys and all the stuff, but one of those key elements that we got to celebrate was the charitable aspect of what fans do, and it's something that Eric Reich talked about last week in terms of what he wants to see more of. If he had, sort of the ability to wish cast something into the world, Ghostbusters related, he wants to see more celebration of charity efforts and the ability to kind of look at that each year and celebrate what different fan franchises are doing. So to me, I think that this event is almost kind of like a potential stepping stone, and something like that where we can acknowledge what's going on in a way where the studio can interact with it, and we'll see. Like, it would be kind of cool if there was like a Ghostbusters Day of Giving that just was somehow related to the studio, and this, I think it's a good way to get there.
Yeah. And not the fact that, you don't already have franchises going above and beyond, because I think anybody that puts a flight suit on and a proton pack on, they're already going above and beyond. But I think to some degree, an initiative like that could kind of light even a further fire under some franchises and such. And I mean, everybody's going to benefit in the end. So me personally, I love that idea.
Yeah. I mean, like, we already have things like the Ghostbusters toy drives that are happening, that happen with lots of different franchises participating. And so to see more studio support of that and acknowledgement of it, I think is really cool, and so it was a great way to start off Ghostbusters Day, and something really unique. I have to say, I'm a little bummed that I missed it, because I always refer to the LA Ghostbusters as my hometown heroes, because I live there, even though I'm not really there right now. I happen to be in the middle of the undisclosed location known as the Parent Trap, which I will reiterate is not a secret speakeasy bar that's parental themed. But I think it's really cool that they had the opportunity to have that celebrated, and that we got to see Ecto 1 come out and do something, be a little bit of flagshipy. She stays on the lot so much now, there's no reason for Ecto 1, the OG, to leave. And as much as I love the Frozen Empire cars that used to be the Afterlife cars, that's the car I love the most.
And it's also nice to see it too, getting treated well in the respects of like them actually fixing things and making it roadworthy, and the fact that it can actually run, rather than like seeing photos of an Ecto in front of Ghost Core and, seeing a dent here or there, or seeing a mark or a scuff or anything, and nobody doing anything, or, repairing an area in kind of a shoddy fashion that they probably shouldn't repair at a certain area, in that manner. So it's nice to actually see them taking that initiative, that effort, and kind of preserving that film car.
Yeah, I agree. I've been saying for a while that I hope that car can go live somewhere safe in a museum or something. But if they can get it restored even further and use it for promotional stuff, why not? But I'm glad that it got to be there. And I hope that in some ways, like, I don't think they really did it, but part of me hopes that they just kind of drove down Skid Row with it to be like, let's just drive you by the old firehouse, because, we haven't been there in a while. But they probably didn't. Let's be real. They probably put it on a trailer and then drove it back to Culver City on a trailer, as opposed to driving it all the way down there on its own. But who knows?
Right in front, the engine just it just begins to stall. Come on.
It would be kind of crazy. But yeah, congrats to the LA Ghostbusters for that event. And, again, it's really cool that they were able to celebrate the charity work that's done and the sort of impact that Ghostbusters has had as it's been filming things in the city of Los Angeles and things over the many, many years that Ghostbusters has existed. And there's like 40 of them. And the other thing we found out before Ghostbusters Day sort of kicked off was there was this tease that the Sony animation project for Ghostbusters, whatever the next Ghostbusters cartoon is still in the works, and that it's coming to Netflix. We don't really know when. I don't really think we got any more details than that, other than it's still happening, everybody.
Oh, no. We did get when. Soon.
Right.
It's coming soon.
Well, I mean, the hashtag that they put out on X when Sony Pictures Animation put this out was hashtag next on Netflix. So, I mean, I'm just going to go with tomorrow. That's clearly what that means.
I mean, do they have a live feed? Like if I click on it right now and I start watching something live on Netflix, is it going to be next? Probably not. I know that's like their overarching term, next on Netflix and all that. But yeah, it would be nice to at least have a general, I would say, year that we can expect this. Like, this year, probably not, but who knows? I mean, we've got Comic-Con coming up, maybe an announcement. Who knows? But yeah, I figure that this is going to be something that it'll probably be a slow burn to, and we may not see it till 2025. If we didn't see anything from this time around, it's probably a good ways off.
I'm gonna try and just like kind of make a little prediction here, a little hypothesis. I don't think Comic-Con. I think potentially WonderCon. Like that would make sense because it's a good like sort of animation driven convention, that maybe they would do it there. And it's not a real hard like travel commitment for Sony to make because they only have to drive to Anaheim. So I could see that. If we don't get it at Comic-Con, then I could see potentially something at WonderCon when you'd see other animated works being talked about and promoted, But I would really love to have seen just like concept art, that we got concept art for the comic book a while, before that came out. And so it would be really cool to see some concept art of just potential characters, but I don't know. It'll be cool when we get it. I'm excited about it. And I'll be honest, I'm really hopeful about it. Like listening to Eric talk about the attempt to sort of talk to more kids and the younger generations when he was on last week really has me jazzed about animated stuff. And I think that that's probably really going to be the thing that they're focused on for a bit now after coming out of this most recent movie. I mean, we know there's going to be more stories to tell, but hopefully that means more movies too. But there's definitely the animated series in the works. And I hope that that's out there because I want my nieces to watch it. And then I want to buy toys that are related to it, not just for them, but for me, because I'm weird and buy a lot of toys. But
I'm going to throw out something in the respects of that. I think the reason that we haven't gotten, and I mean, I know some people are going to like, no, don't say this. We want to have animated Venkman on the screen. But I think the reason we probably didn't get art is I've got a hunch. I think if you go back to the tweet that Sony Pictures Animation put up, they stated based on Ghostbusters. Just saying based on Ghostbusters makes me think that this could be kind of that, Ghostbusters from the perspective of a ghost type of vibe. It could be something totally different. It may not be your traditional Ghostbusters. And I think that is probably the reason why we may have not seen anything yet, is they want to make sure everything is ready, prime, and they present it. And I mean, whenever there's a change of anything that is like a nostalgia brand and it's changed in any way, people are like putting their pitchforks up and they want to hate it immediately. Right. So I think Sony, if that's the case, I mean, who knows? It may be Ghostbusters, the original 4 in 1990, what happened then. And it's, very much like for years, I've been saying Ghostbusters is an Archer style. I'd be totally down on like that style of comedy.
Yeah.
It could be something like that. Who knows? Or it could be something totally whacked out from the ghost perspective inside the containment unit. And that's it. But again, I think the reason that they haven't shown anything yet or anything like that is A, it's not ready, of course, but B, for what is ready, they don't want to come off bad that first time around. They want to make sure that they're presenting the fan base with the best thing possible, that sure, you're going to get haters, but the overarching majority hopefully should like what they see. And I'm hoping that's the reason.
Well, it's interesting you say that because if you recall a while back, there was some released artwork. It was concept art for a potential animated series that was in the works around like post Ghostbusters 2016 that likely would have done exactly what you're saying, would have been focused on ghosts inside of a Ghostverse rather than on the Ghostbusters predominantly. And I think in that context, when that artwork came out, there was some folks who immediately grabbed their pitchforks and went, ah! And some of us immediately went, you can put those down because that's not a thing that's being made. Yeah. You can calm down now. So I think, if they are going with an approach like that, they probably really do have to make sure that what they're going to bring to bear is going to be something that folks, find palatable and don't react to negatively. But, we don't really know. We don't know what it could be anything. They could turn around and be like, it's Ghostbusters in high school. And we'd be like, oh my God, really? You did that? We thought that idea was dead, but
oh God. Oh my God. Oh, Jesus. Dan has finally got this. I didn't even think about that. That could be the thing. Oh man. Ghostbusters without proton packs. Oh God.
Hey, he could be off at a psychiatric hospital finding fingers back when we didn't have any equipment.
You know how you speak to the youth of the generation, how you get them on board, introduce them to like 16-year-old race stance. They're gonna love that.
Pre-seminary race dance.
They have an episode where he like, I don't know, he gets drunk for the first time drinking vodka. You know, it's just, we get some like awkward Crystal Head promotion in there. It'll be great.
You can't forget the fact that young Ray Stantz went to the seminary, so he's probably an altar boy. He's probably stealing sacramental wine and then getting in trouble for it. You know, that's got to be part of his background, right?
Well, I think whatever it's going to be better than that. And if it does turn out to be this, well, guess what? Later on, we can go back, we can listen to this episode, and I just want to say I'm sorry.
Hey, I have predicted several things about the last Ghostbusters movie, to be fair, on this podcast. I said it could be a Sprinter van. I said I wanted to see ghosts talk, and that we would hopefully get some ghosts that would actually have dialogue and that spoke with us. And it turned out we had an entire character who did that, so I knew nothing about the movie, but I got right about those things. So I'm not saying that to scare you, but you know, just maybe it could happen. Just be careful. Maybe they, instead of having containment units, they have containment lockers. They just have, they're in the high school hallway.
Walter Peck's like the Mr. Belding. Hey,
He's got to be this. He's got to be about the same age as them. So instead, he has to be like a hall monitor.
Okay. Oh, it's Slimer when he was alive. He's this really big dude. He just walks down. Hey, what is going on here? Mr. Belding type. Oh, man. Okay. Now I'm winning myself over with this idea.
Hey, I see. If you talk about it for too long, then it'll become a thing that you're like, this, we can actually do this. Let's make this. And then someone will turn it into a fan comic book. Like somebody out there right now is like, I could do this. I could write this story. Why not? So no, we're not telling you to do that. We don't need Ghostbusters in high school. Please don't do this. But, you know, whatever. It's going to be, whatever we get will be better than that. Let's be real. I'm excited about it. It's a good idea. From more Ghostbusters cartoons is a good thing. One other thing that happened before Ghostbusters Day kicked off that I thought was kind of funny was you reported about Ghostbusters randomly showing up in the background of a New York news report with people with PKE meters in the background, which I have to tell you, after being around New York City all weekend, I saw Ghostbusters in so many places that were nowhere near the firehouse because there were just so many people around in flight suits. And the day after, I went back to my sister's house in Connecticut, and I was seeing my sister's in-laws had come by for a party who I don't routinely see. And one of them immediately was like, oh, yesterday I saw a Ghostbusters car. And I was like, where? And they were like, oh, like up in the Upper West Side. And I was like, what did it look like? And I said, was it a Cadillac? Was it this? And they're like, no, it was like some sort of weird car that had like, was newer. And I think it had Puerto Rican flags. And I was like, right on. It's like, there were so many Ghostbusters vehicles around and stuff like that. Just it amazes me that we didn't see more Ghostbusters show up on television news reports. But yeah, good job for you on catching this, that there was apparently Ghostbusters in the news by accident. Did we pinpoint who those people were?
I got to double check. I believe someone on Instagram messaged me or tagged me in the identity of them because they were at obviously they were at the firehouse. Right. So yeah, I think we have that information. I should look into it and double check and maybe update that post. But kudos to them. And the fact too that the dude on the in the back. I mean, there was two of them in the background, but like the one that was closest to the news reporter, like he was perfect. Like it seemed like it was almost like it was a gag on the news reporter's end of like him getting scanned and like almost like Spenglered a little bit there in terms of the reaction. And then the way that the segment ends with the one dude just like hoofing it and like running off, it like they could not have timed that better.
No, it's really amazing. Like it's hilarious. And it's like on the ABC7 news that broadcasts all over the New York area, which is just amazing.
And the fact too is it's not just some location. I mean, that is the museum from Ghostbusters 2. That they're, right. So like a hardcore Ghostbusters fan in general, they're going to watch that and they're like, hey, what's that? And it's the funny thing too, is it, to my knowledge, I don't even think the news report is even really connected all that. Maybe it is, I guess the building, I don't know. All I know is there was Ghostbusters, a museum. And I mean, that to me was kind of the weird unofficial kickoff to Ghostbusters Day.
Yeah, I mean, I think the news report is about like how the governor is facing some backlash from people who like don't think that there should be congestion pricing in the city of New York, driving.
You could have filmed it
It's
anywhere.
so random. It's so random where they filmed it. Like, so it's pretty amazing though. I love that this was going on. And it's, to be honest, like I'll talk about this in a bit, riding around the Ecto 1 again with, with Greg, the Ecto Tech. Even then, like we saw Ghostbusters all over town who were just like waving at us as we're driving by in the car. So some of those people were on walking tours. Some of those people were just like people walking around in the city in flight suits doing random stuff. So,
but I think that was the comedy of this news clip is the fact though that they're 100% committed to the character. It's not like you're catching them.
Oh yeah.
And they're like eating a hot dog in the background. Like they're surveying the area, you know, they're looking for the source of the river of slime, the psychomagnetic mood slime. So yeah, kudos to those two.
Yeah, if that's you, if you listen to Extraplasm, shoot me a message because I would love to know who you are because it's so damn funny. I loved it. And I really liked seeing it on ABC News, I'll be honest, because being back home has like tuned me back into New York area news and stuff. And I'm like, oh God, I missed New York area news. It's so stupid to say that, but I just love listening to New York news reports.
He loves his New York news. He loves his New York bagels. He's a simple man, folks.
Do you know I have not yet had a single bagel on this entire trip? I somehow made it into the city and didn't have a bagel. It's amazing. But I believe there are some in the freezer here that somebody stashed away from me. So I might have a vaulted bagel later on. Maybe when we're done making this podcast, who knows? But let's talk about the day itself, because we've kind of talked about the lead up to Ghostbusters Day. Let's talk about what went on the day itself. So on the day itself, obviously, the big thing that kind of started the day off was the event in New York City. And I mean this with like no exaggeration. To say that there were more people there than there were at the premiere is a fact. When I walked up to the event at 11:10 a.m., because the Buffalo Ghostbusters asked people not to get there early before 12, but I did because I was like, whatever. But so did many more people apparently, because the street was completely filled, like 100% density when I arrived. And then the line to buy merchandise had wrapped around the building and was like past the firehouse. And before the event started, that line made it like almost all the way around the block back to the firehouse of people who wanted to come in and get autographs or buy merchandise, etc. And at the same time, like there was no point where like the street itself drained out with those people. It was a completely packed elbow to elbow situation. And then this giant line of people who were there to get merch and autographs and stuff that really, I would have to say there were at least double the number of people there that there were for the premiere, if not more. It was kind of wild. So, and I walked up at the exact moment that the 3 Cadillac Miller Meteors in the Ecto fleet that were going to be there for the day, Ecto 1NJ, Ecto 1 or Ecto Ohio, and Ecto Oklahoma, which I may not have the name of these cars right, but they're the right states for sure. They all drove up like in a line together. And there's actually, I think, a video that you and I have cross-posted on our various social medias on Instagram. People can take a look at this. And it was from that moment, like the event just kind of like kicked off. Like these 3 cars, it was crazy getting the 3 cars parked. People were all over the place and they were trying to get people out of the way because no one knew where to stand at the same time as they were trying to back these cars in and what have you. But once the cars were in place, it was just like all of a sudden, the vibe changed in a way where it was like from anticipation to we are all celebrating. Like, and I have to say like that I have, as much as I know that there was a lot of positivity and a lot of joy around when we were at the premiere, like this was even more intense because it was just pure fan celebration.
Yeah.
Like we weren't there waiting for anybody to show up. Do you know what I mean?
No, I get that. I totally get that. I mean, it's an entire event that, I mean, it is fan oriented. I mean, it's based in that. And while Sony has kind of helped out in previous years and such like that, the heart of it is like the Buffalo Ghostbusters crew, those that work at Hook and Ladder, Company 8. And I mean, they've really kind of cultivated something special here.
Yeah. I mean, it was amazing. I mean, I think that even like talking to Dan from Buffalo, he was like, there's so many people here. And I shot a quick little interview with Nick from the Firehouse and he was talking about he couldn't believe how many people were there, that the thing most impressive of the day was the size of the crowd and that he felt like they had hit capacity in some senses. And so, I mean, it was massive, massive turnout. And I had hoped to shoot like tons of little segments and stuff and plug them into the episode. And instead, what ended up happening was that I had all these wonderful experiences of people walking up to me and saying like, hey, I listened to the show and I really love it. And I think it's great. And in some cases I was like, hey, do you want to be on the show? And pulled out my microphone. They were like, no, like if I don't want to be recorded because that's awkward. I don't like being on microphone. I don't like being on camera, but I just wanted to say thank you. Like I love the show so much. And I handed out a ton of buttons to people and talked with so many people. I got to meet AC Martin, who's been on the podcast and who is a total awesome person. And if nobody has seen these photos, I didn't capture them myself, but they're out on social media. AC actually hopped into the Oklahoma Ecto-1's gunner seat. And so she was like there and like just doing gunner seat work. And it was kind of funny. Like people were taking photos and whatnot. But that was really awesome. I mean, the Alessi brothers played and that was really great. And I have to admit that I didn't make it into the firehouse until very, very, very late in the day when most of the signers and things had left. But I did get to shake Joe Cirillo's hand, which was kind of cool. Which, you know, was kind of, he was walking out and he just said, hey, and just shook my hand as he left.
Pencil
like,
neck.
He didn't call me pencil neck, but he shook my hand. So that's kind of cool. But yeah, I mean, it was a really great day. It was really fun. And it was really great to interact with so many awesome people. And you can see a lot of video footage that I posted on on Extraplasm social media. You can see stuff that Buffalo's got posted. You can see, I mean, if anybody was there, they posted stuff.
Again, as I said just a few moments ago, like, I mean, there were so many different fan franchises. I think it's hard not to see footage from this New York gathering on social media. Like it's everywhere. If you're following the hashtag of Ghostbusters, like even just going on X and searching that day, there was just so much from so many different news outlets that was, we shouldn't even say news outlets, just everybody was posting.
But you know what? You're not wrong, though, because there were a bunch of legitimate news outlets that also came out to cover this. And they were like folks walking around with like professional press credentials, which I thought was so cute. Because I was like, you don't really need those here, but it's great that you have them. Maybe they're opening doors for you. But, you know, it's kind of awesome that if you look, there's like a couple, I think it's called My New York Magazine or something, has a bunch of posts that are out there, really great photos with people. There's a really great photo of Eric Christensen that I think they got in his battle vests, and Chris Sorrentino for sure, I think, as his Jake Blues character. But I mean, and then weirdly, I think that they actually may have shot footage of me interviewing them. Like I have seen multiple instances of video of myself, like as I'm talking to other people on the microphone, I am then sent or tagged in stuff where people stopped and shot me creating content, which I was like, oh, that's weird.
I've seen more clips of you interviewing people from other people, which is really weird.
Well,
like,
it's just really weird. I'm like, well, how are those posts trending then? But I don't know. But it was a really good time. And if you haven't seen this stuff on the Extraplasm social media or on Ghostbusters News cross post, because some of it was, you can certainly go check that out on Instagram if you're listening and want to see that. But it was a really great time. I mean, and it was a really good celebration. I could keep going on and on about it, but I wish you were there. That was one of the key things I would say is that I repeatedly got asked by people, where's Jason? Where's Jason?
Well,
where's Jason?
Where was Jason? Why Jason was at home. That's where Jason. See, Jason has a problem when it comes to Ghostbusters Day in the respects that it is Ghostbusters Day, and there is news that comes along with Ghostbusters Day. So for me to be there, surrounded by people, and then like for Hasbro to be like, "Hey, we're doing another HasLab." How am I going to update that? So sometimes I have to bite the bullet, and I gotta be where I need to be to report on the news. If I know something's going to happen, I gotta be there, right? Even though I really wish I could have made it out to New York City.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you're right about this because without question, as much as it was great to talk to folks and have the experience of meeting fans who like listen to Extraplasm, and some of whom I'm going to tell you point blank were like folks who were like, I started listening to you because Jason from Ghostbusters News came on your podcast and I follow him, and I was like, cool, right on. Glad you're here. Like, but I think that meeting those people is great, but it meant that every time I had a 10-minute interaction with a fan, I wasn't capturing something. And so I just kind of realized at a point I was like, well, I want to have the opportunity to meet and talk to people because that's why we all came here, you know? So
like going back to the premiere, like my time at the Firehouse, because visually I'm more on camera than you are. Right. So people recognize me, and like it was hard for me to do really anything in the respects that, and I don't want to like sound like I'm complaining because I'm grateful for anybody that does recognize me, and I'm grateful for anybody that wants to come up to me and talk to me.
Absolutely.
Because I'm not somebody, if I saw myself, I wouldn't want to talk to me. So thank you to those who do. But like I was hardly able to get like anything done shot wise back in March for the premiere. So had I went to this, I mean, and I don't want to be like, oh, everybody be talking to me because they may not. I don't know these things, but I just have a feeling that it would have been chaos. Like I would have had to start like throat punching people just to get like a photo of Joe Cirillo.
Well, it is kind of funny. Like when we left at the premiere, you and I kind of took a back route out because we were kind of needed to get to the carpet. Right. And we were interacting with so many people who were like, hey, I love Ghostbusters news. And we didn't want to be rude to anybody, but we were like, we got to go. So it's kind of like.
You gave me the Michael Jackson treatment. You put like a towel over my head and you huddled me out of there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. Yeah. It was really great to meet everybody. And to be fair, I told folks, like, if you see me, say hi to me. And I was so thrilled to meet everybody I met.
Oh, it's so awesome.
It's great. Like, and that, I mean that no negative sense as much as you just realize in the moment that you're going to get less coverage than you anticipated because you're going to also be in the moment. Right. And to me, like, I think it's more important to be in the moment in those cases rather than to be like, hey, can I try and reach over 14 people with a selfie stick to try and shoot the same coverage of the Alessi brothers from 7 rows back when inevitably somebody's going to have it closer? Like Ghost speaking.
Yeah.
And I joked about this. You know, a lot of us were kind of like filming the same things and then going like, hey, what did you get? What did you get? You know, so it's like if we're all working together to find stuff and we can all promote each other's stuff, it means that fans get good coverage throughout the day, you know? And so to me, I think that became a more important thing to go, okay, well, what's going on and who's getting it and how can you repost it into stories, et cetera.
Well, I was about to say, I think that's the way that, I think going forward, that's probably the best way to do it. Especially when it comes to just kind of finding that creative kind of coverage. I mean, like the cross post that we did together, like in terms of you fueling the Ghostbusters news channel. Later that night, JD Raymer for the screening of Frozen Empire in LA, which we'll get to, as well as also like I've got some footage coming up from Steve from On the Scenes Adventures. He was there and shot some beautiful, beautiful stuff. I already featured a couple photos of his, and he's got like a lot of footage that he's sending my way. So I think that's going to be kind of the way to do it, I think, going forward when it comes to some of like the Ghostbusters news coverage, where if I can't get there, see if we can kind of work together, kind of do something. I mean, I totally want to be there next year in New York or LA or wherever they're throwing a party. I mean, obviously New York's going to have a party next year. The only thing I'm kind of curious about, since you went there, do you think there's any changes that could be made going forward? Because it sounds kind of chaotic, like in terms of people lining up around the block. Like it almost feels like it's like a weird tipping point in the respects of like, is there something they're going to have to change to make next year run a little smoother?
This is by no means a negative judgment about the event, because I think the event ran really well, to be honest. As much as it was very busy, I think that the turnout was larger than anyone anticipated, which only speaks to the success of the sort of long-term marketing of an event like this. Like Buffalo spent how much time marketing this, the partner organizations, right? Like Ecto-1 and J had been talking about being there and appearing for it. NYC Ghostbusters were promoting this and what have you, and their walking tour. And so like, and everybody who was involved in promoting, I don't mean to isolate anybody. If you're like out there, like I promoted things too. I'm like, that's cool. I wasn't trying to isolate you, but like there was a long tail sort of marketing of this, you know, and sort of a long tail reveal that set this up really well, such that many people wanted to come out. And many of them who were just like in the neighborhood who were like, oh, cool, there's a Ghostbusters thing going on. And not just Ghostbusters fans who are coming from far, but like just New Yorkers who were like, oh, cool, a thing is happening. You know, and so I think
Taylor Swift.
No, she was not there.
Well, she lives like right across, right? Like she's using one of those.
The turnout would have been way crazier if she had been there. But I think that like, you know, I think there's maybe things that they can think about in terms of how to streamline stuff, like, or how, like, just maybe some stuff like the firehouse, figuring out if they can put up shade tents on the side of the firehouse so that not everybody's in the sun all day, you know. But to be fair, like part of the thing I want to stress is like that event was supposed to run from 12 to 2. We were still there at 5. Like, and they had not opened the street, and the firehouse kind of has some limited discretion to close and open the street for things that they're doing and operations they have at the firehouse. And, you know, they still have to respond to calls. Like during the middle of the event, they had a fire truck parked outside and everybody had to get out of its way. And the fire truck left to go on a call to a round of applause as we all stood in the street clapping at a fire truck leaving. Cause we were like, yeah, go save New York. But like the funny thing to consider is that it is a working firehouse during this event. Even it's not like they get to close up shop and have like dispensation to not fight fire that day. So I think the extent that they can make changes is sort of limited by the way of what they do, but maybe some of those things, like can you get some shade tents to put up on the side of the firehouse so if there is a line for merch, like people aren't standing in the sun as much, or maybe potentially like can you do potential pre-orders for merchandise so people aren't coming into the firehouse to pick and choose what they want one by one, but instead like you've kind of arranged in advance, like this is what I want, and you're picking up your stuff and paying on site and getting out of the line quicker. I mean, I just think those are things that can be tweaked, but I don't think that the event was necessarily all that chaotic. I think there were chaotic moments. I think that there were moments like when the 3 Ecto-1s arrived, nobody really knew where they were supposed to, like they knew where they're going to park them, but nobody really understood what they were supposed to do. And so there was this communicated message of back up, but like everyone's kind of standing there filming the Ecto-1s coming in and being really excited. And I think that those are the things to kind of tweak. But beyond that, I don't feel like the event itself was ever really all that chaotic. It was actually pretty relaxed. I think that the vibe was a lot of positive energy. And maybe that's because I didn't stand in line for merch, to be fair. I did show up and go, this line is very long. I want to talk and interact more than I want stuff. But I will say this. I've talked about this a few times over the last few weeks since we went to the premiere together. And I don't know if I've talked about this on air, but my paradigm has sort of shifted in terms of Ghostbusters fandom and what I want out of an interactive experience. And what I want less is to collect stuff. And what I want more is to have interactions and relationship building and storytelling and those things. And so I think that when I got to the event, I was less focused on, I got to make sure I get my blankety blanks. I need my challenge coins or my t-shirts. And I was more focused on like, I got to make sure I see so-and-so. I got to make sure I say hi to so-and-so. I have to make sure I give a handshake to somebody. And so I think that if you were there and you were really concerned about walking away with your souvenirs, you might have been a little more frustrated. But if you embraced the moment and you were present, it was a lot of fun. Like, and I really didn't find anybody I talked to who really complained about anything,
That's
like,
good.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that's the hallmark of things is like, think about FanFest. And you can think about how much we all can remember FanFest as a positive experience and that we had a day on the Sony lot and we got to see friends, but there's plenty of people who can also complain about FanFest. And there's some people who don't think it was positive at all. And when you look at an event like the Firehouse, like overwhelmingly, I think the vibe was positive.
And I mean, that's kind of the beauty, I think, of that event too, is being that it is that fan driven and also the fact too, that it's being done with charity in mind, right? Like that's kind of the basis of it there. I don't really think you can, if something doesn't run as smoothly, I mean, it's not like you're paying, to be there.
Right.
You're there, you're in the moment, you're taking it all in. It's not like somebody who's paid, let's say $100 to get into like a Comic-Con or a convention or what have you there. So I think there is that kind of leeway, which is nice, where if you do have to wait an hour or two to get something, to get some merch or what have you, it's a little bit more easier overlooked.
Well, and there's the freedom of mobility, right? Like if you are in the moment overwhelmed by being where you are because there's too many people, or if you need to just go get a bottle of water and a slice of pizza, you can. You just leave and then you walk right back over because you're not like trapped in a venue where you can't get out of where you are, And so I think it's kind of an interesting thing to consider that because the event happens like in the heart of New York City, you have the opportunity to take advantage of that. And if you need to take a break from what you're doing, or if you need to go get something, you have access to the entire city around you, so it's kind of interesting to consider that. And I think that was another way that it makes it different from an event on the lot, where once you're on the lot, you're not leaving until you're ready to leave, right? Like you're generally not going to be like, hi, I want to leave the lot to go across the street to the Shell station and go get myself a soda. And this is the other thing that happened with that event that I think is really interesting is that the event drew people to it who we might not have expected to be there. Like AC Martin was there, but AC came not as a guest of the event, but just because she wanted to engage Ghostbusters fans. And she took photos with tons of people and was essentially a person who's like, I'm a New Yorker attending the event and I'm going to come out and meet folks because I've started to find out more about the fandom as a result of being in this movie and doing this podcast appearance and having people support my family's, cause for her brother's medical care and stuff. And she came out and talked to tons of fans, took tons of photos, was super, super awesome and nice. And apparently at some point, Harold Ramis's wife came by. She just kind of showed up at the firehouse unexpectedly, and no one really like knew that she was going to be there. She just kind of appeared. And so it's like weird that like it was the hub that kind of started to draw other people to it.
Yeah, and the weird thing is she didn't even know what was happening. It was something where she just kind of showed up and it was like, what is this? Oh, it's the 40th anniversary of Ghostbusters. Oh, well, do you know who I am? You know, and it just kind of snowballed from there.
Yeah, she had just kind of come by the firehouse, like, oh, I'll go take a look at the firehouse since I'm in the area or whatever. And just happened upon all of us doing all of the Ghostbusters stuff and was just kind of like, I don't know what this is, and kind of got led to the interior of the firehouse to meet people and shake hands and kind of get the royal treatment. So, I mean, it's funny to think about it, but like, I don't know that Adam Murray originally, he became a guest of the firehouse or a guest of the event and was signing there, but he's another person who kind of like, because of the marketing of what was going on, kind of got drawn into this process of being involved with the firehouse for the event. So it's kind of fun to consider this, that like the event is entirely fan driven. And I shook Dan's hand. There's video footage of this. I shook Dan Lieberg's hand and said that I was wrong several years ago when he was going to spend trying to raise $1,000 for a Hollywood collectible sign. And I said, why are you doing that? Doesn't make any sense. What is the firehouse going to do with that? And now it's turned into all of this, right? This all started out as some campaign to buy the firehouse a souvenir sign. And after 4 years, it's become this event that like literally filled the street and wrapped around the block, you know? So what will it look like next year? I don't know. To be fair, Buffalo did say next year will be smaller when they came on the podcast. They were like, we're not going this big for the 41st. But I hope they do, because it was a ton of fun. One thing I should touch on that I got to do that was really great. I have to issue a little bit of an apology first. I said I was going to do the walking tour. And I said going into the event that I didn't do the walking tour for the premiere, and I was going to do the walking tour for the 40th anniversary and go and be on the NYC Ghostbusters walking tour. And I even suggested or maybe even joked that I was going to live podcast from it and just take over the tour and run it, which I was never really going to do. But I have to admit that at the time that the tour left, I had not eaten any food since like 9 o'clock in the morning, and I hadn't drank anything since 11. And it was somewhere around 3 or 3:30. And I was like, I cannot go on the walking tour. I will collapse. That will be bad. So I ended up skipping the walking tour. But our good friend, the Ectotech, Greg Hilliard, and our good friend, Nick of Ecto1NJ, were kind enough to offer to let me ride along and go shotgun on the tour ride that was given for the folks who won the Buffalo Ghostbusters auction for an Ecto1 airport pickup. And as opposed to doing an airport pickup, this family from West Virginia, who I have to admit, I'm sorry, I forgot what their names were. They instead got a tour around the city after the firehouse event ended. So I got to take a ride all the way from the firehouse to the library, and then to 55 Central Park West, and then back to the firehouse again. And I got to sit in the I got to sit shotgun this time, Jason. I didn't sit in the back. I got to sit up front.
Well, that's cool. You and the Virginias.
The Virginias.
That's the
the West Virginias.
Well, that's the family now. That's how I'm going to refer to them.
Well, they were not in the front seat. That would have been a lot of us in the front seat.
Yeah, they were back there with the containment unit.
Yes, they were in the back with the containment unit and the Slimer that's back there and all the great stuff. They did achieve a great thing, which is that we got stuck in traffic at Grand Central Terminal, and right in front of GCT, they busted out the loudhailer and gave it to their 5-year-old, who was serenading the entire crowd outside, staring at the Ecto-1 with "On Our Own" by Bobby Brown, just over the PA.
Oh, that's wonderful.
It was great. And I had the opportunity to lean out the window at a hot dog vendor and ask him if he'd seen any green ghosts lately, stealing hot dogs from him, which was fantastic. But it was an amazing experience, as it always is. And I have to say this, if you have an opportunity to go on a ghost tour with Ecto1NJ, you absolutely need to go. It is an outstanding experience. And to have done the whole tour this time, as opposed to the short ride that you and I got when we were with JD Raymer for the premiere, was amazing. In fact, the guy who's the doorman at 55 Central Park West has so much at this point become so familiar with Ecto1NJ that when we arrived and flipped a U-turn out front, he was like ready for us. He was like, yeah, and like threw his hands up in the air. And he knew Greg. It was so funny when Greg got out to take pictures. He like saying hi to the doorman because they've done the tours so many times now that he sort of like greets them warmly every time they arrive, which I just thought was so cool. And then apparently after we left, the New York City Ghostbusters ended up there on their walking tour. And I guess the guy who plays Dean Yeager in the first Ghostbusters movie lives at 55 Central Park West.
Yes.
So he came out to go somewhere at the same time as all these Ghostbusters fans were outside, and there's footage of that posted on Instagram and on YouTube. I think
it's on the Ghostbusters News Instagram page right now.
Yeah, I was like, there you go. So you know where to find it. But that kind of blew my mind, and also I now fear for that man because I worry that way too many of us know that he lives there.
Yeah.
He's going to get a lot of autograph mail now, I fear, because everybody's going to go, we'll just figure out which apartment he lives in the building. But
yeah, that's a little unfortunate for that. Everybody knows where old Dean Yeager lives. Also do want to send a huge thank you out to Luna Mars for sending me that clip, because obviously, again, I was in New York, so she sent that over to GB News there.
Yeah, and Luna was great at the firehouse as well, and gave us a little kind of interview for Extraplasm with an amazing set of bedazzled Ghostbusters goggles and a fantastic Ghostbusters, slimed inspired ball gown, essentially. Outfit.
She's the best.
Outstanding.
I don't
great
care.
Person.
I don't care whatever scale you have. I'm just going to say she's the best on. That's it.
The best at bedazzling Ghostbusters gear for sure. If you need to find somebody who can get you some rhinestones to put all over your stuff and make it, shine, I'm positive that you can get the help there.
Dan Aykroyd is calling right now.
The other thing I loved about being at 55 Central Park West was I hopped out of the car to take this photo. I wanted to get a photo as low to the ground as I could, kind of tilted up to try and capture the entire building with the Ecto-1 in front of the doors, kind of perfectly parked. And I got close. I didn't get the entire top of the building because it wouldn't fit. But as I'm like laying on the sidewalk in New York City, people are whipping out their own phones to take pictures of the car. I realized in that moment that I can be a super nerd, even beyond the level of laying on the ground. So I get up off the ground and I look at these people with all their phones and I was like, do you realize where you are right now? And they're like, no, where? And I was like, well, that's 55 Central Park West. And they looked at me like, what does that mean? And I went, this is the building where Dana Barrett lives. This is the place where Gozer's temple is at the end of the movie. And then I gave a small talk about that to like 15 people on the sidewalk. And then we got back in the car and left.
This
so
is the church that Stay Puft said. He stepped on.
It's like, see the church? Nobody steps on it in this town. Venkman says it. That's the church right there. So that was kind of fun. It's kind of dopey, but I was a total nerd on the street in New York City and was unabashedly proud about it.
Those 15 people all walked away with an Extraplasm button.
Actually, they didn't, because those were in the car and I'd given out like 75 of them or something previously. But yeah, it was really great. And I want to stress to everybody who has the opportunity, go take a ride with Greg and Nick, because you will have a blast and they will probably give you Twinkies and Crunch Bars and, make funny jokes and all kinds of things that make your ride totally enjoyable. Even if you get stuck in traffic for like 40 minutes in a car that does not have air conditioning today, but will soon. Craig told me he got the air conditioning at almost at midnight the night before Ghostbusters Day. He's like, I didn't have time to install it yet. So
damn it, Jim.
It'll be installed soon.
Leave out the negatives, upsell the positives.
I am upselling the positives. The car will have air conditioning.
There we go. It
will. The air conditioning is coming.
By the time this podcast airs, let me tell you.
Air conditioning will be a thing. It's going to be a nice, icy cold situation in the back of that Ecto-1. So maybe not too cold, though. You don't want Garaka to attack and freeze it while you're driving. That'd be bad. So, really good day in New York City. Really awesome. And one other thing that happened kind of in the midst of the world before we get into the LA thing was that Hasbro announced some stuff. And the Hasbro team was in New York. I actually got to meet them very briefly. Talked with Emily Bader for a few minutes, and Zach Spina from the Ghostbusters development team, who's the engineer who does product design and what have you, actually was carrying around the PKE meter and the Ghostbusters trap and fully flight suited. And so at multiple points throughout the day, there were folks who had the opportunity to interact with the HasLab 2-in-a-box set we didn't get to see the electronics demonstrated for us, but we got to see the physical models, which was really awesome. So this is something, if you haven't seen already, is definitely on the Extraplasm social media. It's definitely on Ghostbusters News as well, cross-posted. Jason, did you have any thoughts about this, sort of seeing those props in my hands, at least for a second, because I got to hold them for a second? It was awesome.
Yeah, I didn't. So I would have to say my impressions is I love the look of I love the look of both of these. I think they look great coming from a toy company. I think they look amazing. Yeah, design-wise, they look fantastic. I love the kind of the chunkiness of the PK meter, getting that kind of like Afterlife style, with like the whole kind of like shocker effect and everything. Yeah, overall, I love the look of them. The only thing I'm a little iffy on, which it kind of takes it back to that toy territory, is the interior of the ghost trap. You can kind of see like the molded kind of circuitry and everything on the inside when you take like the vent out of it. That was like the only thing that was like, oh, okay, yeah, it's toy, whatever. That I'm not like a huge fan of, but nobody's ever going to see it. And chances for me, like, I think I bought two in the boxes. One to kind of, actually, one I'm going to have it like as a Ghostbuster 1 trap. The other's a Ghostbuster 2 trap. But I think with both of those, I'm going to wind up installing like a smoke kit. So I'm not going to see it anyways. I don't know.
Right.
I don't know why I'm complaining for the price and like the quality that you're getting. Very much like the Proton Pack from Hasbro. These were a steal. Even with them not released yet, they're still a steal in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm going to say this as somebody who got the opportunity to hold them, even though you didn't, and I'm sorry. But like, these are durable things. There's some real weight to these devices that really feel, I want to say realistic, even though these are not real things. They are fantasy props. But the prop for the trap probably weighs about 4 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's got some real heft and weight to it. The PKE meter probably weighs at least a pound. And not to like poke fun at it, but in the midst of showing things off, Zach's cartridge for his trap actually fell out and took a like straight up drop from, hip height all the way to the pavement and smacked off the sidewalk in New York City. And everybody went, oh my God. And he picked it back up and it was perfectly fine. And he put it back in the trap. That's not a thing I'm going to recommend anybody do, but it was the kind of thing where I went, if that had been a spirit trap, that would be in pieces right now. Like that's, so these are also built really well. It's not just something that looks good. My impression was that the build quality holding this in hand was on point.
Well, I will say, I am someone who many, many years ago, if people out there, they may recall there was a mobile game called Ghostbusters Paranormal Blast. If you look up that trailer to the game, you're going to see my mug in it. I play one of the Ghostbusters. Just kind of random. But shooting that commercial, the ghost trap that I had on my belt fell, and it was the Mattel trap. And let me tell you, that fall on concrete dinged the hell out of it. It pretty much made it where I had to go in with like a kind of like some silver paint and make it look like, okay, this is like meant to be wear. Like there's some severe damage here. I had to kind of hide it that way. So to actually hear that the Hasbro one can take that abuse, it can take that fall, hit the street and still look okay and be presented in videos afterwards. That makes me even more excited for it now.
Yeah. I was kind of impressed by the durability of it because he just picked the cartridge up, popped it back into place, and you wouldn't have been the wiser that it had fallen at all, which is kind of amazing. But yeah, I can't stress enough that these are going to be great when we get them. I wish I got to see the electronics demonstrated. I don't think there's any video of that. I do think that maybe some people may have seen that in private, but not me, to be fair. I did hear from some folks that they may have seen some private demonstration of those things that were not recorded.
Which was really good. He did tout that this is, in his opinion, the most accurate PK meter ever when it comes to the sound. Primarily based around its appearance, how it sounded in the first Ghostbusters movie, with obviously nuances from Afterlife and such and Frozen Empire. Which, up until now, there hasn't been a mass-produced official PK meter that actually has legit noises. Like, it's all been these beeps and everything. But he even called it out. He was like, I watched one interview and he was just like, yeah, that kind of like crackly audio that you hear in the first movie, that's what we have with this one. So like, he knows that it sounds worse, but damn it, it's what you hear.
Well, it's actually funny because when I was standing there and he got asked this by a young man who was filming him, and I kind of had walked up. A bunch of us had kind of walked up as we were all filming this from different angles, and people were throwing out different questions. And this young gentleman standing next to me asked him this, in the different Ghostbusters movies, the lights operate differently, and Mattel went through and actually studied those lights to make sure that they were correct. Like, did you all do that too? And he sort of said, like, we went and looked at many of the same things. I think you're going to be very satisfied with what you're going to see without saying like, yes, we did the exact same thing. So I think that my hope is that when we get it, it's going to be the most accurate electronic representation. I love the Matty PKE, don't get me wrong, but like the Matty PKE looks right and its light patterns work correctly, but it doesn't sound like a PKE meter. It sounds like some other thing. It just goes beep, 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 and that's it. So to sort of see this and hold it really made me happy about the build quality, and I hope that the electronics are just as good in it. I will say that the one thing I was a little thrown off by was that I felt like the handle was a little boxier than other PKE meters I've held. And I don't know if that means that the other PKE meters are just wrong, because I think this came from a scan of a prop in the same way that the Neutrona wand did, and the Proton pack did. But I just felt like holding it in my hand like it was more angular and more rigid, like had harder corners to it. But that may be because I've gotten overly used to holding the rounded handle on a Spirit one.
And I've always, obviously, I was not privy to that. I wasn't lucky enough to hold it already. But in terms of what was seen in Afterlife and Frozen Empire, it does have that slightly like bulkier looking handle. So I'm thinking it's probably just that. And you're right, it was scanned using, a screen use prop or what have you.
Right. And I've heard people talk about that and say they think it looks too chunky or too bulky. And I think that it is because it is not the PKE meter from the first movie. No. It is the PKE meter from Afterlife with the red switch underneath it that makes the arms flip out for, the taser mode. So it's going to have a slightly different design than any of the other PKE meters that are on the market, because all of those are representations of an 84 PKE meter. So I think that there's some license for flexibility there. If you're like somebody looking at this and going, why is it so much bigger? Why does it seem chunkier? Because it's not the PKE meter from the 84 movie or the 89 movie. It's the PKE meter from Afterlife, which, we know was upgraded. So it's had some changes to it.
Some damn weirdo is going to gut this thing and put it in like a $19 PK meter shell, isn't he?
That's going to happen.
It's too chunky.
And somebody else is going to eventually figure out how to make the handle changed out so it can be like the grappler grip or whatever it is from Spirits Unleashed. Or like the hockey tape grip. I'm going to do that. I'm going to have hockey tape. I want that now on my PKE meter. But yeah, I mean, there's all those different things you can do with the PKE meter in the game. You rest assured somebody's going to do that with the HasLab one if you're going to have a Ghostbusters 1 and Ghostbusters 2 trap.
Well, I mean, my thing is strictly because, they've got these side rods that you can kind of swap in and off of. So I don't think I'm going to do too many modifications with it. But I do say that now. Talk to me again come this fall.
You mean you're not anticipating on buying some third-party fan-produced set of electronics so that you can replace all the electronics that are inside of it by changing the light sequence to match the way that the PKE meter or the Ghost Trap worked in Ghostbusters 2 versus Ghostbusters 1?
Well, I believe it has the different modes, so we're good there. And my modifications will be, again, swapping out the rods, which it comes with. And I think when it comes to a smoke kit, man, I'm just going to get like a wireless Bluetooth one. I'm just going to throw it inside, put a little bit of Velcro in there, close it up, and just hit the button whenever I need to. And that's going to be it. I'm
going to be even lazier than that. Not that that's lazy, but I'm going to go and get myself a bunch of I'm going to go get myself a bunch of dry ice. I'm just going to chuck it in there, and then I'm going to walk away. Just watch it vaporize, come out of the trap. You know how cheap dry ice is? Buy like 2 pounds of dry ice for like $3 or something over at Smart and Final in California.
I can't do that.
No, you can't. You live in Canada.
Well, I mean, I'd kill myself. I'm stupid. I don't know.
I was going to say half your country is made of dry ice, so
I'll pick it up. I don't know. Whenever I do something like that, I always just I keep tampering with it until I ruin something. And I feel like with dry ice, the hazard is there where what I'm going to ruin is going to be myself. I'm going to totally screw up my hands or something. And I mean, I do review videos. I got to make sure I have all my fingers.
This is true. You do need all your fingers for that. especially if you're going to preview any Ghostbusters gloves in the upcoming years to come. You can get some Ripple Junction mittens, and then you can't put them on. That'll be bad. The other Hasbro news, of course, was that the O-ring figures, which we have known about for a while, went up for sale and as pre-ordered. When do those come out? Like in next year or something?
February, man. February.
It's a pretty big haul, right?
Yeah. I saw that date and I was like, man, you guys really don't have any Plasma Series figures in the wings that you could have announced today, did you? You really don't. Yeah, no, February is the date. And I mean, I understand why some people got a little angry with that. But at the same time, too, they said it was going to be a drop. They never really said it was going to be like available and like.
Right.
I had a good hunch it was going to be a pre-order for it, but I didn't expect February. That was surprising.
I found that surprising as well. I didn't anticipate that they were going to be available as much as they were going to be available for order. That was kind of what was teased previously, was that they would be available for order, not available for immediate shipping.
Yeah, what I found really weird was the fact that initially when they were promoting these O-ring figures, like they were kind of promoted in tandem with the Ecto-1, like that 84 style Ecto-1. And you had the Ecto launch like a month beforehand, and it was just in stock. Here it is. So to wait that long, I mean, I get it. I don't like it, but I get it.
Yeah, I mean, and it's, a situation too where I think that they have to still finalize box art. I had the opportunity to look at these. They were in the back of an SUV. I'm not kidding. Because the Hasbro team was parked with an SUV right outside the firehouse of the space they were given. And so they were kind of just hanging out in the hatchback of their SUV and talking to folks and using it as shade. And that meant that you could walk up to them and chat with Emily and chat with Pat and chat with Gary and Zach and et cetera. And they had buttons to give away to folks that were teasing the next thing we're going to talk about for the next HasLab. But they also had one set of O-ring figures that were inside of a display box. But that display box was not decorated with any Ghostbusters art. It was just like kind of primary colors, red, yellow, blue, and white with triangle shapes or something. And I have a photo of this over on the Extraplasm Instagram. You might have copied this as well to Ghostbusters News. I can't remember.
Yes.
It was kind of funny. You posted those and I posted those, and there were immediate comments that were like, this packaging sucks. And I realized I immediately standing on the side of the road at the firehouse had to pull my phone back out and go into edit mode and write packaging not final, still in development, because people were beginning to comment like, why did they use this god awful packaging? And I'm like, it's not, it's just like placeholder art until they finalize it.
It's the form of the box. That's what it is. They've got the form of the box ready. So mint on card collectors, mint in box collectors, they know what's coming for there. It makes sense. And the fact too, that to have 4 G.I. Joe style Ghostbuster figures in hand would have been horrible to display and try to show off to people there. So it's just here. Take a look at this. This is it.
Right.
So it makes sense.
But it gives you an idea of the form factor that they're going to come into in terms of the box. Like this box art, I believe, is not final, but the packaging design in terms of the representation of the 4 figures inside of a clamshell bubble plastic that can be displayed through the window with a folding front, I believe, is going to be the idea.
You know what I hope they do? Yeah. And Emily, if you're listening, or anybody from Hasbro, what I would love is, because it looks, it's like a box that you can like flip open, right? Like the front you can kind of flip open. Yeah. I would love for them to recreate the original VHS box, but on the back, have the figures reenacting the scenes, like actually have them like doing the stand-ins and everything like that. I think that'd be so cool.
That would be cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. That actually would be really cool. At first I was like, that's kind of almost like the way they did the artwork for the Mego style figures. That was very like made a callback to the original VHS box. And so I was like, I don't know if I would want to do that, but I like that idea of like making the frames on the back the same.
Yeah.
That would be really cool.
Or if you're going to do the cover, don't do the traditional logo, do that, that one poster where it has the 3 guys like looking up at the sky, the ominous sky.
Right.
But have it where you add in Winston. And again, they're all the O-ring figures.
Yeah. That would be awesome. Yeah. I actually really like that idea. It's really cool. That'd be good. Some good marketing too. Like recreate the entire poster. You know, like with the 3 guys, like we're getting all 4 of them. And fix the problem.
You got to bring Winston. That's a problem.
Yeah, fix the problem.
They're going to fix the problem.
Don't recreate it. Upgrade it. Update it.
You know what?
I like that idea.
Hashtag fix the problem. Let's start the movement right now.
If we don't get like a stop motion animation to advertise the next thing we're going to talk about, I'm going to be sad because look, we got a button and the button says HasLab, and underneath the HasLab, there's a tire and it has white walls. And over the H of the word HasLab, there is a clear Ecto 1 fin. And we don't know what it is yet. I tried to find out from the Hasbro team when I talked to them, but they were still tight-lipped about what it is specifically. But it appears that the next HasLab is going to be an Ecto 1. And I think, Jason, we're going to get the thing I've wanted forever. I think we're going to get a 112 Ecto 1 that I can finally buy and then shut up about.
Yeah, I mean, if it's not a 112th Ecto 1, this is the biggest foobar yet when it comes to any Ghostbusters line. Because let me tell you, you do not do a HasLab campaign for an Ecto 1. You have two options if you're doing a HasLab. 1-in-1 scale or 112 scale. That's the only two options that you could possibly do where people are going to be happy about it there.
Right.
And they're not doing 1-1. That's not in the cards. So yeah, we're totally going to get a 112 scale Ecto 1. I mean,
yeah,
that's not official from Hasbro's end, but you're hearing it here first from Extraplasm and Ghostbusters News. We're making it official, even if Hasbro doesn't know it yet. 112 Ecto 1. Launching the HasLab is set to launch this fall. So obviously right around the time, at least the projection is that when we're getting our 2 in the boxes, they're going to be launching this thing. And the last 2 they launched around late October, wrapped up in December. So I'm assuming it's going to mirror that.
Yeah, I think you're probably right about that. And if we get a 112 Ecto, I told Emily straight up when I talked with her that it was very likely that the Hasbro team was going to make me weep.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've wanted a 112 Ecto for my figures for so long, even longer than has been Plasma series. Like I've wanted them for my Maddie figures. So, I'm going to need more than one. It's sick to think about this, but I already know I'm going to need more than one of these. Like,
here's the beauty of the Ecto. I saw a few people complain about it. Like, do we really need another Ecto? Yes, we do.
Yes.
If it's 112 scale, we need another Ecto 1. Your complaint should be, why did I buy all these other Ecto 1s that I don't need? That should be your real complaint. Because the beauty of the Ecto is that there's so many toys that it's compatible with.
Right.
A 112 scale, that's going to work with almost every freaking standard Ghostbuster. Like you got the Mattel, you got the Hasbro. They're going to fit in the Kenner's going to fit in there too.
The only thing it's not is going to be Diamond Select, right? And like these new O-Ring figures, which will have their own vehicle.
They're going to have their own Ecto. You're going to be fine. Diamond Select toys, like 3/4 of those collectors kept them in the package.
Right.
And now the real Ghostbuster ones are selling up for like $400 online. So don't worry about them anymore. But yeah, I think people are going to buy them. And the thing about it too is not only are people going to buy multiples, I have a feeling, because every HasLab people have bought multiples. Like a lot of people have.
Yes.
I think, and I kind of talked about this in the YouTube video that I made where it was kind of like that report where I mentioned stretch goals. And I think this is probably going to have, like, I'll be honest, some of the stretch goals with the Proton Pack and the 2 in the box, I was like, yeah, okay. There's some things I really like. Other ones, it's like, I don't really need this.
Sure, like stickers. I don't really need more
I don't
stickers.
need stickers.
Good thing.
I mean, the Spengler journal I looked at once, and that was it. Like little things like that. The burnt mini puffs were cool. I dug those. But with the Ecto, they've got such an opportunity here to, I think, sell like 2 Ectos to like 3/4 of the audience that are going to back this thing.
Yes.
There's a lot of ways they can do that. I mean, one of the ideas I had was Ecto 1A conversion kit. I think that's a must.
Yeah.
That can do really well. I don't know if you have any ideas in terms of stretch goals. I've got a couple that I would love to see. But
I mean, I would love to see, this is probably a pipe dream, but I would love to see an Ecto 1 that I could convert between all 4 Ecto 1s.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I would love to see a trim package that let me either put like removable, almost like static cling rust onto the car. You know, I and it's kind of weird to think about this, but I'm wondering this, like, how do you make this car now? And which era do you get? Like, I think there's limitations to how much you can do this. Like, I can't imagine that you can make a modular gunner seat option, like that plugs in and out. Like, we're going to get a car either with a gunner seat or without a gunner seat. But at a visual appeal level, exterior wise, I would love it if there was a way to like put the red racing stripe that they've added on the car on if you want to, or take it off if you don't. But that kind of comes from my like Lego build, right? Like the Lego Ecto 1, there are some folks who got the Afterlife Ecto 1 and they were like, cool, I'm building it and then putting the rust stickers on it. And there were some people who were like, I don't want it to look rusty. I don't want it to look banged up. I want it to look like a pristine Ecto 1. And so I hope that we get some customizability in that sense. And the other thing I really hope we get is like, it will be cool if we get a gurney, like for packs, right? It'll be cool like if we have that level of sort of equipment. But more than that, I want functionality of lights and sound that work well and that I can trigger without having to open up something. Like I think that the Playmobil Ecto 1 has really great lights and sounds and stuff, but like the button is on top. If they could give us a remote that would let us trigger those things for photos and stuff, that would be awesome. Like, I'm not saying make it drivable, make it RC. I think that's probably too much of an ask. It would be great if they could do it, but I think it's probably too much of an ask. But if they don't do something like that, I would love some way of being able to upload MP3 files to it or something. But even barring that, just a remote control that lets me control the sirens, lets me control the lights, and lets me control like playback of music and clips from the movie would be awesome. Like, and if they can do the Transformers things, like the RoboSins and things that we see that have all this different functionality, it's electronic, like why not have something like this? You know, if we can get all the proton pack functionality we get, why not some sort of remote that lets you manage the lights and sound without having to mess with it? Once you've posed it and you've got everything set up the way you want it, you can back away from it, set up your camera, and boom, set off your effects.
Yeah, I mean, like they've got those crazy Transformers figures that have the apps and everything that you can like issue it commands and everything right from there. I mean, I don't expect like if they had the conversion kit with the Ecto 1A, I don't think you're going to have like scrolling sidebars or anything like that. They may, but if they did, how cool would that be? If you could actually like program, you know, we're back or what have you.
No, I'd program Extraplasm and just scroll by on mine.
I like it. But I think if you had to like outline, okay, Jason, give me a tier list of what you want. I think with this set, you give people your plasma figures and you also give people that conversion kit. I think there's one character that is missing. And I mean, there's a lot of characters missing in the plasma series.
A lot of characters missing. Yeah. Right.
But for what's out now, there is one character missing that they need.
Who's that?
Slimer.
Yeah.
How can you have a Ghostbusters toy line this deep, not have Slimer? You give us all the great sculpts that we've been seeing come out for Frozen Empire. Tier 1, Slimer. I think that's huge.
Yeah.
Tier 2, you give us a conversion kit. And I think you do Ecto 1A. I think you also do the Frozen Empire stripe. I think you have the front two sides where you can just snap them off, snap them back on. And you've got alterations to that. And you can extend that stripe. And the top just pops off and you've got another top, like a roof rack you can pop on. I don't know how you do Afterlife, but if they can figure out a way, go ahead. But I think the beauty of those alteration kits is you immediately sell another to somebody. And if you have 3 alterations or if you have 4 alterations, there are sickos out there, you're listening to one of them, that would probably buy 4 Ecto 1s. I don't have room for one of them, but god dang it, I'm going to buy 4 of them.
Because you're going to get a new DTOF just to display 4 things in. Like, just,
I mean, it's not going to fit in any of them, but
that's probably true.
Yeah, it's not going to fit. Size, it's not going to fit at all. But I think the third or maybe second, you can alter them between the two. I think the conversion kit should be number 2 because you're looking to build up sales with that. I think people buy multiple if it's number 2. I still would love to see, and it's a quick, easy add. And Hasbro likes to reuse things. Let's be honest here. And if they're going to give us let's say they give us a Slimer. That's a new sculpt. Has to be. They're going to give us a conversion kit. I think there'll be a reuse somewhere. And I would think flight suits are easy to do over again. And I would love to see a Ghostbusters 2 dark uniform set of Ghostbusters in there too. If I had like a perfect, tier list, that'd be my thing.
Right on. Yeah, I mean, I will admit that I'm not sure that I need another set of the guys like from the 84 and 89 movies as much as I'm like, if you're going to give me something like...
You don't need a Hasbro slime blower? Come on.
I mean, it would be cool, but I'm also willing to admit that like before I get that, I actually would like Frozen Empire Plasma Series figures. So like, I actually would like those first. I admit it. Like I want a Phoebe that isn't, 12 because I would like our characters to grow up, and I really want a Lars. I mean, I want a Gary, I want a Callie, but I really want a Lars. I admit it. Like I really just want a Lars action figure for some reason. So will we get that with this? No, probably not. But
yeah, I mean, it could. That's the thing. If you're talking, if we're talking conversion kits and everything, it would make more sense to go Frozen Empire than Ghostbusters 2. I think I don't know how the hardcores react, like the general fan base, because I think a lot of people still want some Ghostbusters 2 figures from Hasbro. That's an overarching thing I always hear about. But I think you're right in the respects. There's more of a demand for the Frozen Empire figures. I just don't know if outside of that hardcore, like a lot of people that bought Proton packs for the sake of Proton, like, hey, I can finally win a Proton pack. That's really cool.
Right.
I don't know if those people will have that attachment to the but then again, who really cares? If you're a hardcore fan, who cares about slime blowers or dark suits? So it's an oddity. It's an odd one. But considering,
I mean,
like 2 in the box and the Proton pack, like both of those campaigns smashed their goals. If those were any indicators, and this is a little weird because it's not a prop, I think that Hasbro can make up for that from selling multiple Ectos to people, and I think they'll definitely do that.
Yeah,
because I
think they will too. Yeah, I mean, I know I'm gonna need 2, and I know that's kind of gonna be foolish of me when I'm done, but I'm gonna want to, and I think there are still folks too who will get this and who will make choices to modify it completely. There are folks who are going to buy an additional one of these because they're going to spray paint it black, or they're not going to spray paint it black. They're going to use really good black car paint or something to like make it into the car that shows up and that only costs $4,800, and so I think that that's a thing to consider is there's folks out there who are going to make those kinds of mods to it and what have you. And I'm sure that there will probably be a series of different add-ons and mods that even if we don't get them, as a result of, like if they don't get, for instance, let's say they do a modular roof for Ecto 1 and Ecto 1A, maybe it's up to the fan community to turn around then and be like, well, we're going to build one with a drone trap, but to me, like, I think that the more realistic thing might be to think about a car that looks like it does in the original movie, a car that then you can add on modular pieces to make it Ecto 1A, and then a car that maybe you can put stickers onto that peel on and off that illustrate the rust and kind of decay of the car while using the original roof rack modular pieces. Because if you really think about it, there's no real difference between the car in 84 and the car in Afterlife in terms of its roof rack design. I don't think, it's kind of the same.
And I think too, like Hasbro, unlike other toy companies, I shouldn't say Hasbro in general, like Hasbro as a whole, but the team that is specifically working behind the HasLab stuff and the Ghostbusters stuff, they've got such a good handle on the community in terms of they know what people are going to mod, they know what they're going to change. They think about that beforehand. So I think that if they were to do something like that and they were like, okay, we're not going to include a Frozen Empire roof rack, they know people are going to do their own thing. And I wouldn't doubt if some of those areas of that roof rack you could maybe detach individually, maybe just a little screw set in there. You can take this off, and then they know people are going to be selling, third-party drone trap cases that they can pop on top of there. Again, not confirmed by, heck, the Ecto 1, again, it's not confirmed by Hasbro. I'm already telling you how they're going to make the thing, and I have no idea, no confirmation just yet. But I think that if they do wind up doing this, they're going to go all in on it. It's going to be freaking incredible to have a 112 Skull Ecto 1. And when I say all in, I think we're going to get lights. I think we're going to get sounds. I'm really curious on the price point as to what it's going to be.
Yeah.
I would hate to even guess because I don't want to be like, hey, 300 and this thing turns out to be 400, or I say, hey, 250 and this thing turns out to be 200.
Right.
But I'm Yeah, Hasbro, you already have multiple sold for me.
Yes, and I expect that it's going to cost a little bit more because, there's the Ghostbusters license that costs money in terms of production, and then there's the Cadillac license in this case too, right? I'm sure that General Motors is probably making some money on every Ecto 1 that Hasbro's producing, given that the GM logo appears even on the 118 Ectos box. They are signed off by GM to use the Cadillac branding.
This
and what have you,
is
so
this is gonna be the one time that they do not get the GM license. And like the front of it is like the 3 light system rather than the 2. They have to make some sacrifice somewhere. They had to get it under 300.
This is going to be the NHLPA hockey as opposed to the NHL hockey of my hockey games of my youth. If you were, but
the weird thing is though, is I feel like, and I don't know what they have in their pipeline because I mean they could show more off at Comic-Con and throughout the year and everything like that. But I'm surprised that like with Ghostbusters Day that this did not get more hype. I'm guessing it's probably just too early and they can't really show too much off just yet. But
right,
I'm surprised that we got this tease, but it was a tease also that kind of went out that was almost under the radar in the respects of like, some Ghostbusters social channels, Ghostbusters News included, we were able to post something about it. And then you guys in New York got buttons from Hasbro.
right.
But like, I was under the impression that Hasbro was going to talk about it and then they didn't, so it's kind of a weird announcement, but not announcement on Ghostbusters Day.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of wonder when we're going to hear more about it. We know that Mondo has sort of suggested they're going to tell us more about their figures at Comic-Con. So I'm kind of hopeful that maybe we'll hear more about the Secto 1 at Comic-Con as well. Maybe there's a plan to talk about more stuff at Comic-Con. Who knows? That's sort of my thought.
If Mondo does like 112 figures too, I know they've already said they're gonna be bigger, but if they wind up being like I'm gonna have to get another Ecto to go with them.
Mondo's gonna need one for every set of figures.
What if Mondo announces an Ecto? I'm gonna need I'm gonna have to move, get a bigger place.
If they announce an Ecto, it'll probably cost a lot more than the HasLab one, to be fair.
Yeah.
One thing we should make sure people know, I've heard a lot of people suggest that the O-ring figures are completely sold out and like you can't pre-order them anymore. And they launched them and they immediately sold out. Like if you need the O-ring figures, they're not exclusive to Hasbro Pulse. The Hasbro Pulse pre-order sold out, which they could totally decide to offer more of those. They have done that before already with the Ecto 1 and 118 scale. Yeah. But they're still available along with the Ecto 1 on Big Bad Toy Store, on Entertainment Earth, etc. So if you missed out on getting them from Hasbro Pulse Direct, you can still go grab them from these other third-party places.
And there is kind of like this weird thing where people do think that they were in stock and the restock is happening in February, but no, again, that's the launch. Nobody's getting these early. As Jim said, in New York, the packaging itself is still being decided. So no, people aren't getting these shipped to them right now. It's a February launch date.
Yeah. So that means that you can still get in on this if you feel like you missed out on it. Just go and grab them from Big Bad Toy Store with that nice $4 flat rate shipping, or get them from Entertainment Earth, where you'll probably pay more in shipping. But
they're on Amazon too. I mean, you can buy. You're doing your online shopping, buy some peanut butter, buy some jelly, and buy yourself a pack of Ghostbusters O-ring figures.
Yeah, why not? Get yourself some awesome stuff that you want from Amazon and those at the same time. And if you do, go over to Ghostbusters News. Use the affiliate link in the coverage for this. So for those O-ring figures to help Jason, put steak on his dinner plate.
I don't make that much money. There's a reason I said buying peanut butter and jelly from Amazon, because that was my order. I bought O-ring.
Easy Mac in your microwave.
Yeah. Some craft dinner up here in Canada. I got some of that along with my O-ring figures.
That's right. Sorry, I called it the wrong thing. It's what we would call it here is Easy Mac. We're going to get to that LA thing still, I assure you. But there's one other piece of merchandise that came out in the morning before that, which is apparently Puma has a line of sneakers and apparel they're going to be putting out. I believe that President Ghostbuster, Eric Reich, teased this in terms of showing some photos of the shoes. And then later on in the day, I believe that John Rothman was actually wearing some of this apparel. And then Patton Oswalt posted some photos of this apparel. So you've got good coverage of this on Ghostbusters News, obviously. Your thoughts on the Puma teases so far?
Well, it's another one where it's it's a reveal, but not really an announcement. Like, it's like, Eric it was something where it wasn't even like a post. It was his Instagram stories. And then the Ghostbusters official thing, like shared it to their Instagram story. So it's a weird one. And then you had like Patton posting it and Logan Kim posting it. And then, Rothman at New York. Yeah. Like another thing where it's out there, people know about it, but nothing really official. So you've got to really be in the know about this. Cause like, there's the video that JD Raymer shot of Jason Reitman's introduction at the Sony lot when they showed Frozen Empire and Ghostbusters Day there, and I posted it on social media. Like he posted it, we did the share tag. I featured on YouTube as well, and so many comments is like, "Oh man, I need to have that jacket. I gotta have that jacket. Where can I get that jacket?" And it's like, what would have been great here, guys, is you actually announcing it too at the same time. That would have been good. But apparently it's coming in the fall and it's going to be a total collection. I mean, they didn't say what the shoes are based off of, but when I look at them, I think Pterodog, like it looks like the jowls, kind of like the coloring scheme. I don't know. I just get like a Pterodog vibe, and it says, "Are you God?" on the bottom sole. Really cool looking shoe. It's part of their classic suede collection. And I think it looks great from what I've seen. I like the jacket look. It says Puma for the name tag, kind of recreating a fabricated rendition of the uniform. And Puma makes good stuff. So, and usually not too crazy price stuff, which a lot of you I think will certainly appreciate. I know I do, because I'm going to have to go into debt buying Ecto 1s this fall.
Right. So you don't want to also have to go into debt buying shoes. And I think that what's cool about these is that they have some subtlety to them in terms of the shoes they've shown off so far. Like they say, "Are you a god?" on the bottoms of them, like on the soles when you sort of like put your foot up. But other than that, like you're saying, the real features here are kind of like the coloring of this sort of slate or stone, almost like gargoyle color. And then the Puma branding has been redone to be done in name tag fonts with name tag accents. So it's kind of nice. Like I've said this many times over that I'm not a huge fan of the Reebok shoes because I think they're garish. And they don't really, the exception of maybe the tan ones, they're not so garish, but the others are kind of like in your face, super garish. You need to look at my feet, and they don't really ring Ghostbusters to me. These are kind of way more subtle. And I think that is a better way to go for shoes you want to wear every day while also being a Ghostbusters fan.
I think the Reeboks ones, they made a hell of a display piece. Like if you put them inside like a Detolf cabinet on display, like they look great on someone's foot. Not so much. I will say though, I did like the Slimer. That's my own personal favorite. Especially like the soles on the inside with Slimer's face. So good.
Yeah. I mean, I think that you're right. I think they're good if you're a sneakerhead who likes to sort of display stuff, but they were things that I could never imagine spending money on and then putting on my feet and wearing out in public. So it's like, I can't do this.
You mean you wouldn't have put the one that was based on the Ecto 1 that had its own big green proton pack pump on the back that you could pump up? Really?
No.
And it had the wires that fell off constantly?
So they would fall off while you walked around. Right. That's my point.
Yeah.
That and the pink ones that looked like you had walked through an operating theater. I was not a fan of those. But these are nice. The Puma ones, if you haven't seen them, go take a look at Ghostbusters News and check this out. Because they're much nicer looking. And this jacket is really, really kind of awesome. I really think it's a good take on sort of something that looks in the vein of kind of a Ghostbusters uniform, but distinctly sets itself apart as, a more fashionable jacket. It's got Ghostbusters logos on it and stuff that are in good places that aren't sort of in your face, like they're on the elbows and stuff. So pretty cool.
Well, at the same time too, though, like I remember when Bill Murray, back for the Frozen Empire promotion, Bill Murray wore that patch jacket that was like for an interview, and it was garish looking. It was not good. Yes. And then the next day, he was like, "I need this jacket. I need to have it." So I don't know, but yeah, I think
Bill
you're right.
Murray wore it. I need one.
And I love the fact too that I feel like the accents on it, they almost kind of trigger like the proton pack, like the Alice Fane straps a little bit. Like they're not the same color, but they're kind of close to it. So you kind of have this military kind of khaki kind of vibe going to it.
Yeah, it's kind of like a military khaki and with a little bit of olive drab from the straps and the proton pack belt, whatnot. So yeah, I think you're right. Like it's a good color combination on it. So we'll see when these come out in the fall, what the pricing is going to look like, because they didn't really tell us that. But we did get to see the inside of Patton Oswalt's kitchen as well. So Patton Oswalt has a very nice kitchen. I just want to say that.
You could make some good pizza in that kitchen there, Jim.
I could. That's true. Whew. Patton Oswalt, if you're listening, I'll come over and make you pizza. I don't live far away. That sounds terrible.
You know exactly where Patton lives. He's
I
on his
do
way,
not.
Patton.
I do not.
Run.
The last couple things we'll talk about before we jump into talking about the LA thing and sort of our reactions to it. There was an announcement from Illfonic that the opportunity is going to be set for the fans to choose which ghost will be the next one added to Spirits Unleashed, and that there will be some new limited time drops for the 40th anniversary. But apparently fans are going to have the opportunity to choose between Boogeyman, Gozer, and the Library Ghost as 3 different choices that will show up in a later DLC this year. This is something you and I were talking about a little bit off air earlier, that I think a lot of people, as you do, I think as well, believed that this was going to be like the choice for the next DLC, like next month or next week or something. And it's probably not. It's probably more for the fan favorite ghost they're going to do for the final DLC pack at the end of the year, right?
Yeah, I think the wording is just a little misconstrued there in terms of how it was advertised and everything, because yeah, we definitely know that Slimer is up next. He was advertised for summer. I mean, maybe something got changed around, but the fact that they have 3 DLCs left and they obviously still need to program these ghosts and like design them properly, get them in the game. We're not going to get this one next. Like Slimer's coming next. And then after that, we've got obviously the Scoleri brothers. They haven't officially said, but again, we're telling you it's going to be the Scaleris. And then the last one we're going to get Boogeyman, Gozer, or Library Ghost. I don't know. I think we're going to get Boogeyman.
I think that's very likely. Personally, I think that Gozer has an appeal to older fans, but I think that a lot of folks who are fans of Spirits Unleashed are big real Ghostbusters fans.
Yeah.
You know, and when they put more real Ghostbusters stuff into the game, when they put the proton packs in and the gear shells, people were so stoked about that I see a lot of people coming out to sort of go Boogeyman. And I'll be honest, I think that that's a ghost that fits better into the aesthetic of Spirits Unleashed. You know, Spirits Unleashed does not have a lot of humanoid ghosts, if you will. Like maybe the Basher ghost is the closest one to a straight up kind of human being ghost. And so I think that having something a little more cartoony makes sense. But I don't know. I'm also interested to see, like, are these forthcoming ghosts going to be new ghost classifications? Or are they just going to be an extension of existing ghost classes? Like, well, when we got Garaka, we just got a new Overlord skin, right? Like it was almost like a new take on the spear throwing ghost that was already
worked
in there.
with Garaka. That's the thing. When you're talking Gozer and you're talking Boogeyman, and the librarian could be like another class that's already there. It doesn't matter. Boogeyman and Gozer, they walk. They're not aerial. Yeah. It made sense for Garaka to be up because you see him kind of hovering when he goes into the firehouse. Same with Samhain. It made sense for him to kind of hover and everything like that. But Boogie and Gozer, they don't hover. You know, like they walk. Mm-hmm. So I'm curious to see how Illfonic is gonna like kind of change, like how they're gonna kind of like cater these characters if one of those is the one that's chosen. Because I'll be honest, I can't see the Library Ghost being the winner out of these 3 at all. Even though I think the Library Ghost would look awesome in the game, and I would love to see the transitional effect of like going from the sweet old lady to the horrifying kind of creepy monkey looking thing. I'd love to see that in game, but I really do think we're gonna get Boogeyman. And like I'm just thinking, like, what kind of like special abilities would you give them? Like, could you have it where like Boogeyman, since he's gonna walk, could you have it where maybe he could like come out of like doorways? Like his power up is you just choose something and he like finds the nearest Ghostbuster that's near a doorway and he just like opens it up and he's like, I'm the Boogeyman. I don't know. Also, Illfonic, if you're listening to this, license the Tahiti song from Real Ghostbusters. That's what I need.
Oh yeah.
If it's him,
I agree.
Oh, that'd be so good.
Yeah. No, I'm gonna agree with you about that. There should totally be
if they can license
Tahiti.
If they can license the Dickies for Killer Clowns from Outer Space, they can license Tahiti. Like, yeah, Tahiti can't be. I mean, they're probably like a hot dog and a quarter. You can get that song in the game. Come on now.
Yeah, I want to see that. I actually kind of think that I want to see Boogeyman more than anything else, because I mean, it would be cool to see Gozer, but I'm not really sure like what are Gozer's powers other than shooting lightning?
And the coolest thing I could think of Gozer doing would be if they were to, and let's be real here, like they talked about year 2 roadmap, and year 2 roadmap ends in December. This is probably when this ghost is going to come. This is the December update. And unless they talk year 3 roadmap, this will be the final one. Like this is probably going to be it. Hopefully it continues. But I mean, they moved on to Killer Clowns. I just mentioned a second ago there. They're going to doing that now. It's not to say that they can't have 2 or 3 games going at the same time. They've done that before. But it's surprising that an asymmetrical game that's not Dead by Daylight has lasted this long. I mean, Evil Dead had like a year. Texas Chainsaw is still doing okay, but it's lost a bit of steam. Killer Clowns apparently is doing really, really well. That's good to hear. But it's crazy to think that Ghostbusters now, like, they're going to be over 2 years old by the time this DLC finally hits, and they're still going. And I think if they do the Boogeyman, and I could be wrong in this, but I think a lot of people are going to get freaked out by that character. It was something that traumatized a lot of people, and I could almost see like a weird viral trend of people like just being scared to death if they do this character right and just freak people out on live streams and have people's reactions to him and everything. Even if people are overreacting, like I'm probably going to when the DLC hits, and I'm going to act all scared. They could have something with that. So
you're just going to be scared because I'm going to insist that you and I play this game together. I'm going to master that ghost really fast, and then I'm going to be terrified.
Just
that's
popping out of all
the real reason to be scared.
Popping out of all the closet. But no, I was talking about Gozer, and I think one cool thing that you could do with Gozer in the game is if you win, wouldn't it be cool if at the end of the map they design it where all the maps then just like get ripped open and like Stay Puft comes like looking down smiling as they're running away? That'd be awesome. If you're gonna add if you're gonna add that Illfonic, okay, I'm fine with Gozer.
I've also said that I would be okay with an attack called the Nimble Little Minx, where Gozer just begins doing backflips through the entire map for 15 seconds or something. It's just lots of gymnastics.
You know what's be really cool is if it was Boogeyman, and like when he gets released, all you hear is a knock at the front door of the fire. You just hear a knock. You just keep hearing the knock, and you go up to the door and you open it. And it's those 2 little kids with their damn piggy bank. And it's like, Mr. Ghostbuster. And they're the ones that's how you go to the Boogeyman mission.
Yeah. I mean, it would be cool if we do get one final set of sort of like cinematics for this last Ghost 2.
The weird thing though, too, is they haven't advertised a new map. And I don't think we're going to get a new map, which is a shame because each one of these ghosts, unlike some of the other characters, their surroundings is so much them. The library lady being the library, Gozer's temple. And then you had the Boogeyman, kind of like that, the world where you go through different like corridors and the Boogeyman's lair and all that stuff. So it's kind of a shame that we're going to be getting one of these freaking fantastic, iconic characters so late where we may not get a level. We likely won't get a level.
Yeah, I think that you're probably right about that. I had hoped that we were going to get a library level. That would be something we would end up seeing by the time we finished out the game, but I have a feeling we won't end up seeing any more maps. That being said, I am pretty happy at this point with how this game has developed into the product that it is. I think that early on there were some bugs and features in some of the maps that were certainly made some of the maps more challenging to play in and what have you, and I think that they've created a good balance at this point. So I don't know. That's the thing I think that's the part of me that like bums me out the most a little bit, is that the game has really hit a point where it's really stable and really fun to play. And that this is probably the point where we'll get less of it moving forward after we reach the end of the year. But, who knows? We'll see what happens. Maybe they'll continue to develop it, or maybe there'll be some license upgrade or update between, Sony and Illfonic, and maybe they'll continue to develop stuff for the animated series. We don't know.
It's funny too, because like, with Slimer, the next DLC, we know what we're getting. We know we're getting variations of Slimer, which we're probably all going to play the same. But we're going to be getting a huge, gigantic Slimer butt crack, which is great. We're going to get the cartoon version of Slimer and stuff like that. But Jesus, if they do the movie Slimer and they don't include the butt crack, we're all going to riot. But then we move to the Scolari Brothers, which that's what they've teased. And they already have a courthouse in the game, so that's fine. It's not the courthouse, but I understand, whatever. How do you do the Scolari Brothers? Are they a pre-existing class because they're brothers? Do you add them individually? Can you add it where you transition between like each one of them? Is there a new dynamic with those two?
Right.
Can one aid the other?
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think too, like what's interesting to consider there is that there's the potentiality there to give them a cinematic, the same, or potentially to do a bounty with them in the same way that you saw with the, with Garaka or Sam Hain. Like Sam Hain, essentially, he's just the bust at the museum in his story arc, right? And then he becomes super powerful. They try to trap him and he gets out, and you have to go then to his dimension in a completely different level that you only can access via the bounty mission for Sam Hain. You can't go there otherwise. If that's a thing they could do in a DLC and they could just give us that as a level, that would be cool. Like an arena level, that would be kind of neat. But beyond that, like when you look at Garaka, they did this thing of freezing over the train station map. So they didn't create a whole new map. They created another bounty level where they essentially did a redesign that added different elements to it that blocked off certain passageways and created ice effects. I wonder if they could do the same thing with the courthouse level for the Scalaries. Like have it be a situation where like the courthouse is blacked out due to a power outage because of the electric chair effect and their ability to use electricity or whatever. And, kind of mess with the courthouse and have it be one that's under attack because of them already. And then make that a unique bounty experience in the same way. But we'll see. I mean, like that would be a way to not necessarily give them to create a whole new map for these new ghosts or characters we get, but to take the maps that already exist and at least create a sort of one-off event that you could then replay as a bounty level, So
I think
it's kind of cool.
I think it'd be kind of cool if they incorporated the psychomagnetheric mood slime somehow in that. Like where you could actually have it there where maybe you choose Tony or Nunzio and you've got a jar of slime somewhere in that map. And once the map hits 50% haunted, that thing goes off. So you're Tony, but then Nunzio's going around and he's sliming and he's, interacting with some of the civilians in the game. Like he's now another hazard. He's almost like a more higher end drudge. And
actually, you're making me think of something. Do you remember for a while there were glitches that would happen where you would join a game and you were the ghost, but for whatever reason, the CPU ghost that was there before you, the bot ghost, wouldn't disappear.
Didn't leave.
Right. So you would end up with two ghosts in the level. So that's already a thing that's accidentally happened within the game. So if they could sort of just make that happen as a feature, like they could totally do what you're talking about.
Oh yeah. I think it'd be awesome. You actually have this one ghost that, you can catch, it's computer controlled and everything, but it is, again, it's kind of like a drudge type thing in the respects that it's just going to appear once you hit 50% haunt or what have you, but it'll need to be caught. It can't be blown up or anything like that. And it's whoever you're not playing as. So if you're playing as Tonio, you're playing as Tony, you get Nunzio. Playing as Nunzio, you get Tony.
Right.
Yeah. Illfonic, you're listening.
Yeah.
There you go. Combine both of our ideas.
Paired bot ghost. That's kind of what it is. It's like the partner bot ghost.
If they do that though, like they're going to take over every ghost thing you're ever going to see now when you're playing is going to be either Tony and Nunzio or like Boogeyman. That's the only two people are going to play as going forward.
You talk as if people do things like play as Sam Hain all the time now because he's super effective, or use him in ways where, I don't know, they hit somebody with a lightning bolt to down them and then they float them from the ground and then they hit them with the sabotage and then, and then right afterwards they drop a trap minion under them. And then as soon as they get hit in the head with the trap minion, they hit him with the lightning bolt and then float him in the air again. And then this is not a thing I ever do, Jason. I never play this cheaply, ever.
I am never going to play online with you. I just want to let you know that right now.
I won't play as Sam Hain.
You can play in your Spirits Unleashed world. I'm mentally, I'm in Killer Clowns right now. I'm sorry.
All right. Well, eventually you're going to leave Killer Clowns and decide that the one place you need to be most is a VR Little Caesars as Gozer. Don't.
Oh God,
that's the truth.
That is way too much of like a weird deep cut that like 95% of people are like, what in the world? I don't remember this from like 3 episodes ago. But
no, it's why it's not a deep cut because I keep saying it.
You just keep bringing it back. But I will say I am actually still playing Spirits Unleashed. I don't want to act like I'm only playing Killer Clowns. But yeah, I'm really kind of excited to see what they kind of have coming out in the future. It was cool to kind of get this weird drop too, where they gave us like a Slimer shirt. It was like, here's a Slimer t-shirt, just out of nowhere. And also the drop of the new Twitch, what are they called? The Twitch drop. What are those things called? The Necros. Necro Gluttons, I think they're called this time around.
Yeah. I think you're right about that. So they look like green, slimy, possessed thingies that are scary and creepy. So definitely some cool stuff coming out of Illfonic. I'm excited because I will get to play that game when I get home. I have not seen anything of that game since I left. And for those of you wondering, like, what is that hard for you? I mean, yeah, I play that game basically every day. I have a problem. And it's one of the ways I bust stress is I bust ghosts.
I want to ask you a question right now.
Yeah.
Because I want to see people online get angry if depending on what you answer. Is this your favorite Ghostbusters game? Is this the best Ghostbusters game, according to Jim?
Oh, I don't think that's a fair question.
No.
I think
yes or no. Yes or no.
I don't know. I honestly don't know the answer to that question. I think it's the best Ghostbusters multiplayer. I think that I'm willing to hang my hat on. Like I was saying, that I think it's the best multiplayer that exists for Ghostbusters, but I don't know that its story really holds a candle to the story of the 2009 game. So I can't really answer that question and be like, yeah, it's the best one. But I do think that the online multiplayer environment and the crossplay that was created beats the 2009 game for the simple fact that I'm a PC player, so I could never do anything with the online world of 2009 game. It was never accessible to me.
I get that. The answer feels like a cop-out, but I get it.
It probably is, but it probably is a cop-out. But it's also true. I think that it's probably the truth. Honestly.
No, I do agree with that in the respects that it is really hard to compare. There's so many people, like, whenever we post about it or anything like that, people are just like, man, I just wish they would do another 2009 game. And I do wish they would do another story-driven, single-player narrative Ghostbusters game. I think there's a market for that. I would love an open-world game, but it's so hard to compare the two because they're video games, but it's almost like an apples and oranges type thing where they're both trying to do two different things that are different. I mean, yes, they're entertaining. Yeah. Yes, they're Ghostbusters. Yes, there is story to Spirits Unleashed to some degree, not nearly as in depth as the 2009 game. But yeah, I think for what they do, I would put both of those like in my top 10 of all time favorite video games. So
yeah, I mean, they're great games, and I think that if you haven't played Spirits Unleashed, get it. I mean, it's super affordable and something that you can usually get for less than $20 from wherever you can get it from. So it's really something that's special. And when they're done with the DLC for it, it'll be disappointing. So I think everybody should play it because what they've developed with it is so fantastic. And if nothing else, like the designs of the ghosts that they've created are fantastic. And I still think that they originated the idea of a possessed trash bag.
I think
they did it first.
I think also it's a game too now that even if you're not a fan of asymmetrical games, give it a chance because it's cheap enough usually. Like there's sales going online for this game where you can usually grab it for like $15, $10 or what have you.
Yeah.
Where it's not going to break the bank to pick this up and try it out. Typically, if you're not a fan of that style, and I'll admit, like this game got me more into that game, like that style of game. Prior to that, I was playing Friday the 13th, and I mostly played it offline. Because I didn't really like playing online with that. But Spirits Unleashed broke that. I enjoy playing it online, and I got into Texas Chainsaw. I got into now Killer Clowns from Outer Space. I'm really enjoying that style of game now, and like Spirits Unleashed was that kind of like jumping off point to me. And I think you should buy that. I think you should buy Killer Clowns. I think you should just buy all these games because you know what? They're making a lot of these horror games. Like asymmetrical.
Yeah.
And the fact that I got a Texas Chainsaw game, I got a Ghostbusters game, and a Killer Clowns game, all in the span of like 2 years of one another, that means in the next like couple years, I could get a Toxic Avenger game. I could get a Attack of the Killer Tomatoes game. I want all this stuff. I want all these like B movies and movies from my youth made as asymmetrical games now. So buy them up, kids.
Yeah. I think that it's really cool that we have this many different games from the franchises and IPs that we love. And I hope this isn't the end of Ghostbusters video games when they're done with, this. I mean, I imagine it won't be. We know that there's also a couple other things that were announced on Ghostbusters Day. Like there's a digital or rather a physical release of Ghostbusters VR coming for PlayStation. So I don't think it's going to be the end of Ghostbusters video games, but I kind of hope that this isn't the end of the Illfonic game because I think they built a really good world, to kind of play in. And it's been a lot of fun. So, kind of just touch on real fast before we get into the LA thing. Just very quickly, there's the PlayStation VR release coming for Ghostbusters: Rise of the Ghost Lord that'll be out. When did we get the announcement of that? Do we have a date for that?
There's no date. No, the I think it's Red Art is the company that's publishing it. I believe that's what's their name.
Yes.
I could be mistaken on that. Yeah, they put out a social post on Ghostbusters Day. The official Ghostbusters channels kind of threw that up to people on their Instagram stories and such. But yeah, there's been no date. Just it's another coming soon. So whether we get that first or the Netflix series, up to you. I'm gonna bank though that we're gonna get this game. Question. I think we're gonna get the game first, probably a year or two beforehand.
Probably first.
Yeah, it's pretty safe to assume. But yeah, there's been no details in terms of it's going to be like a complete set. If there is more DLC even planned for this, for the game, like Rise of the Ghost Lord, I don't know. I don't think there is. There's been no talk of like another season of DLC. This may be it. If it is, I mean, it was short-lived, but at least we got a Race Dance avatar and OG gear finally, so that was cool.
Yeah, pretty cool. Let's hit upon a couple of bullet-pointed items real fast before we get into the LA thing. There's a couple of different fan projects that got updates as a result of Ghostbusters Day. The first is that the Buenos, who have produced the Cleaning Up the Town documentary in the past about Ghostbusters 1, are now updating folks about the upcoming Too Hot to Handle. That's the title of the documentary on Ghostbusters 2 and its behind the scenes. They've announced that the edit is complete on the film and they are in the process of finalizing motion graphics. And then the film will be passed off to Randy Edelman to work on the score. For those of you who may not know, Randy Edelman is, of course, the composer on Ghostbusters 2. So it's somewhat fitting that the composer of Ghostbusters 2 will be doing the music for the behind the scenes making of documentary about Ghostbusters 2. Jason, am I right that that's got no release date?
No release date. No, they did not want to. I mean, it's been long in production. I mean, this thing was supposed to be Ghostbusters 1 and 2, like in one documentary, and then it got so big they split it up. So yeah, this thing has been in production for a long time. So I totally understand the Bueno's decision not to go, to throw out a release date there on Ghostbusters Day.
Yeah, and I think also that Derek Osborne, who's been on the podcast in the past, has been working on the edit for this. He's contributed as an editor on the first movie, and I think this has been his sort of pet project for quite a while. He's been working on it in his off time. So that's pretty cool to sort of finally see this come together. I'm eager to see it when it comes out. Of course, we don't know when, but it's still being worked on, which is great to hear the updates on it. And the other thing that we can sort of talk about as unofficial fan-produced merchandise is Magnolia Props has announced that they have opened pre-orders for a Tobin's Spirit Guide replica that I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Jason, retails for about $275. If I'm not,
I believe that's the cost for that one there. Yeah, it's they showed it off I think it was like the day before Ghostbusters Day, if not mistaken. Kind of teased it a little bit there. Launched pre-orders for it, and it looks incredible. I mean, I know this says like unofficial. It's not endorsed by Sony Pictures or anything like this, but I mean, this thing looks legit. To the fact that it looks like a prop. Like it looks like it came off the set. Not only is it like, I mean, it's probably better than the one, to be honest, that was on the set that probably had a bunch of fake pages inside and pages that were blank. Like this is legit. Everything is filled out and it's readable. It's not like you're going to like turn to page 180 and you're going to have like weird words that make no sense or like a copy and paste from like the Wikipedia page of like hot dogs. Like this actually is going to have stuff in it that is going to be a little macabre, about ghosts, about kind of like different regions, beliefs, mythologies, such like that. I don't know where all this information is coming from. I know some of it is being directly written because you can see on the Vigo the Carpathian page, it is directly about Vigo. There are some Easter eggs in there. If you watch the trailer for it, pages are flipping. You see the mask from The Mask, like the Jim Carrey film and like the comic series. So there is going to be some pretty cool Easter eggs also contained in here that aren't necessarily Ghostbusters, but again, just kind of furthers and adds to like that mythological kind of like ghost world and such.
Yeah, it's wild. They're claiming they're going to have 500 pages that will have 12 chapters arranged primarily by geographic location and over 400 articles.
Yeah.
Which is like, this, I don't know who is doing all of this writing, but whoever it is, I'm going to want to talk to them because that's a lot of lore building to be working on. It's pretty fun.
If they're not if they're not using AI for some of these things, my hat's off to them. But you know what? Even if they are using AI, my hat's still off to them because, again, this thing looks incredible from just a visual aspect, like leather bound. And one of my favorite things is the fact that they're going all in on the lore on this thing, and like they're actually including like the little what is it? The bit that goes around it from Spirits Unleashed.
The binding.
Yes, the magic binding for that one. And we don't have like an actual photo of it yet. Like there's like a render of it that's in the article up on ghostbustersnews.com. But from that render, like they're getting that perfect. And I know the team at Illfonic, they've seen this and they freaking love it. Like they were like, this is so cool. Yeah. And very much like that, like the Illfonic collector's edition of the game that came with like a token, just, the exterior tokens. They studied that. They looked at that quite immensely. Even like the inside of like the Illfonic game, like the collector's edition, they're mimicking the inside kind of like look and pattern of like the front and back. They have that on there. So like they're going all in on this. And I know the price point to some, like it's like, oh my God, like I just spent $70 at my local bookstore for a book that's like, why is this, like they're trying to compare it up against these other things. This is not a mass produced thing.
No, it's a prop.
It's a prop. It's a freaking prop. But
it's a prop replica.
Not only is it a prop replica, it's a prop replica that is readable though. Like you can use it as, and I wouldn't recommend it. I mean, obviously, if you're looking up like actual real world facts on mythology, you may not want to use it. But for a laugh, if you're at a convention and like people are, they're like, ooh, what's this? You could like open a book up and be like, well, I think it's to do with the ancient Greek mythology and just pull out some weird demon's name from this thing, like there's an actual play feature that you saw in the real Ghostbusters that you'll be able to do with this book. And that's so freaking cool.
Yeah. I think it's really cool. I'm excited about it. It's one of those things where I think that Magnolia does great work, but this is a really unique piece that's going to require a lot of work and effort and a lot of love. And it's really cool to see it come together after some initial product renderings and sort of spitball ideas that they put out over the last year or so. So
I do want to add, like last year they posted about this thing and they gave people like 3 different options. They were like, hey, do you want to release it just as like a static book, like with like doesn't really do anything, no pages? Do you want to have it where it's like a couple pages? Do you want to go all in? And the overwhelming response was, we want to go all in. And at the time, the pricing on this thing, I think they projected $500 to $600. So they're giving you that deluxe book, and it's actually cheaper than that initial quote, like drastically cheaper, like almost half cheaper than what they initially told people. So, yeah, I'm sold. This is summer release. I'm gonna be again just in debt by the time the fall rolls around here.
We're looking at August for this. The pre-order is open now. And if you want to see, samples of this, Jason's got great coverage of this over on Ghostbusters News with the video and all the product photos and things. Well, let's talk for a few minutes about the end of the day, because we've talked about the beginning of the day and NYC, and we've talked about the things that were announced over the course of the day on Ghostbusters Day and even some things around it. But we haven't really talked about the end of the day with the event that happened on the Sony lot itself and the official celebration of Ghostbusters Day that Sony Pictures put on. And I wasn't there. You were not there. But friend of the podcast and friend of Ghostbusters News, JD Raymer, was there and managed to get some good photos of props that if you haven't gone and checked out JD Raymer on Instagram, you totally should, because JD's got an entire album of just close-ups with every one of the props they showed. And the folks from Yes Have Some were there, and AJ Quick from GB Fans was there, and John Urkaba of Ghostbusters comic book cover art and the Art of Fan Fest and Extraplasm guest fame was there, and a whole bunch of other people. The LA Ghostbusters and the Orange County Ghostbusters were there for sure. But it was essentially, from what I understand, sort of a more intimate version of Ectofest, and that it was, rather than being opened up to fans in general, was kind of an invite-only event. And it included a screening of Frozen Empire that was introduced by Jason Reitman, followed by some food events, some food trucks, pizza and ice cream, and it looked like maybe there was some like frozen desserts that were made with liquid nitrogen.
Yeah.
The stuff that you use to freeze a T-1000. And they had snow fall on the Sony lot. So, and folks appeared to get inside Ghost Corps and go take a look at props from inside the Ghost Corps office, which is still a place I have yet to be in my life. But it seemed like people had some fun, had a pretty good time. What was your kind of take on this from afar of looking at this event?
I mean, it's weird in the respects that like, we're within the community in the respects that like we talk to a lot of people, So I think you and I kind of knew beforehand that this was kind of happening. Like there was talks, there was murmurs that something could be happening on the Sony lot for that.
Yeah.
So it's weird to me though that it's becoming more intimate, like especially for the 40th. Like I'm really surprised they did something that was so intimate, with Frozen Empire and everything. But then again, there really wasn't crazy announcements like there was, a couple years ago, right? And like, if you don't really have if you do something big and you don't have announcements, people are just gonna be like, meh, like whatever.
Right.
So I think that was a pretty good indicator that we weren't going to be getting, an announcement to a Frozen Empire sequel, or we weren't going to be getting a full-fledged showing of the animated series or an animated feature or anything like that. So I think in a weird way, them doing this, at least for some of a lot of the hardcore fans that were in the know, that they, you knew what was going to happen. You knew they were doing the screening on the lot. I think that kind of like set expectations a little better. I think if the people out there that they were just like waiting for that big Ghostbusters announcement for the next film and you didn't know about this stuff and I don't know. I feel like it kind of braced me a little better in like, okay, I can focus in on this other stuff. I can kind of cover, the New York stuff. I can cover the LA stuff, what have you. But I'm not going to be expecting that next Ghostbusters sequel announcement today. That hopefully should come later, but it's not going to be today. But I think it's cool. I think it's cool for the people that were able to make it out to Los Angeles for this event. Again, the content that JD sent our way really, really loved featuring because again, you and I, we couldn't make it out. So the fact that people can kind of check out Ghostbusters news and in turn check out JD Raymer, other stuff he's doing like pin backers and some of the content, some of the items he's making. That's some great stuff. I think it was cool for those that got to show up, and it kind of creates that rare experience where, the last event, it already was an intimate experience. It felt smaller than like Ectofest or whatever it was, years prior. So it's definitely, it definitely has that kind of like nice kind of like inclusive feel where I think the people that did make it out, it does create that really nice memory and something you're going to kind of just, it's a special moment.
I had the opportunity where I might have been able to be at this event if I had been in LA, but I knew I was going to be on the East Coast because I was going to see my family given circumstances with things that are going on that I've talked about on the podcast before with my mother's health. And Eric was nice enough to extend the invitation to me when he was on the podcast and understood what my situation was. And it would have been nice to have been there. But I think in some ways, like I'm very happy that I was in New York for the event that I was at rather than being on the lot. And that's not to say the event on the lot was in any way negative, as much as I think that I was expecting there to be more of a set of announcements like on the lot. I thought something was going to be more talked about in terms of the future. And then in retrospect, I started to rethink this. I think I read a lot of comments from people who were like, you would have thought they would have done more. You would have thought they would have thrown some sort of event. They, did this thing for FanFest for the 35th. And then I thought about last year and what went on for Ghostbusters Day on the lot last year. Nothing. Right? Like we had an Ectofest the year after, or, months after Afterlife came out. And that's when all that soft canon for the video game, the comic book, all of that stuff was announced. So last year, there was no event on the lot. There was no come out and do anything for 2023 for the, 39th anniversary of Ghostbusters because there wasn't something to be able to promote. And in this case, maybe they're just not ready to show us this stuff to the same extent that they have those announcements to make, And so even thinking about Eric's appearance on Extraplasm last week, the thing he talked most about was the animated series still coming and that there might be something coming for later in the year around, Halloween time or so, or in the fall. So I think considering that, maybe my expectations were a little too high about what was going to happen on the lot. Maybe other fans were too, because things are not really driven on the lot based on anniversaries as much as they're driven by whether or not there's something to promote immediately. And in this case, there was something to celebrate the 40th, and there was a celebration of a movie that came out and has essentially been a winning tale for Sony Pictures. But maybe there just wasn't the oomph there to be able to promote something yet, and we'll get more at the end of the year, or maybe we'll get to Comic-Con and find out that Sony's going to have more to announce, even though we've gotten used to them not going to Comic-Con because they do more on the lot during Ghostbusters Day. So, and that's what it's left me with. Like, when will we get more information, given that we usually don't see them go to Comic-Con because they use this day in June to announce a lot of stuff. But since they didn't, does that mean we're going to see more around Comic-Con? Who knows?
Yeah, I think also too, we could be like in a weird transitional state in the respects that the movie. Okay, so like when they went from Afterlife and then they kind of quickly thereafter announced, Frozen Empire. And there was all the talk about, Gil and Jason signing the deal with Sony and everything like that. There's a lot of unknowns if they were to even, again, we don't know if Sony's standpoint is, okay, we're going to make another film. We're going to make another, movie. They could be like that. They may not be. If they are like that, does Gil want to come back and direct? Does Jason want to direct? Will they have to find another director? If that, there's so many unknowns there that it's totally feasible as to why they didn't announce something, And again, you and I, we talk to a lot of individuals. We know that the approval process when it comes to Sony stuff can sometimes be a headache. There's a lot of different things that need to be okayed and verified before it's public ready. So I can maybe see why, like some of these things like Puma and stuff like that were kind of just low key. They were kind of subtle, and it was just like, okay, here's this. We need to kind of feed something out there. We know the dedicated fan base, they're going to help spread that word. We know that. So it could just be a thing again. I think we're just like in a weird transitional moment where they're going to focus in on that Netflix series. That's going to come down the pipeline. They've got this new deal now with Mondo. We're going to have new, retro, real Ghostbuster style figures coming out there, kind of harkening back. I mean, I shouldn't say retro style figures, but based on the retro real Ghostbusters, but new style figures. That's going to like be the best real Ghostbuster figures we've ever received. So there's a lot of new things happening. So I could totally see why that they didn't go all in on this and just, kind of give you everything at one time. And also at the same time too, there's a lot of things I'm sure that still need seasoning before, again, they're public ready and before Sony can sign off on these things. So I totally get it. It would have been nice though to at least have some type of new media when it comes to something coming out Ghostbuster wise. But again, I get it. Yeah.
I mean, and for those who were in attendance, it seems like it was a really fun time. Everybody who's kind of come back from it said they had a really special event, and Jason Reitman gave an introduction to the movie, when they showed Frozen Empire, and he talked about how he's excited that there's going to be more Ghostbuster stories they have to share with people. So all the news coming from there is, there's more to come. We just don't know what it is yet. And I think that I would have liked to have seen a little bit of tease of that. I think I would have been most happy with a little bit of concept art, like I've said, from the animated series that's coming, but it's not ready yet. And I'm not going to be upset about that. I'll be like, I'm mad. I'm a pissed off fan. You didn't give me enough of a fan event. Why didn't you give me a 40th that was good enough? Like, you could do that if you want. There's plenty of people on the internet who have done it. I've seen it. I'm sure you have too. But like, there's no weight to it. There's no benefit to it. I just think that we'll see things later on this year. And that's another thing to consider. Like, it's weird to say this, but for folks who've been saying like, why are we not celebrating the 40th anniversary when we're saying that back in March or April? Because the 40th anniversary hadn't happened yet. Like the 40th anniversary literally happened like 2 days ago, right? And now you may see celebrations of that around when it happens. Maybe we'll see stuff at Comic-Con. Maybe we'll see stuff after that. I'm thinking about stuff that's coming out later in the year, like the Hallmark ornament that, although it's not branded as a 40th item, certainly is because it's celebrating the first movie and not the most current one.
But that's the thing though. Sony learned from their mistakes. They're not going to brand everything with 40 like they did with the 35th and have 35th anniversary merch in stores for the 37th anniversary.
Right.
Because that's what happened.
About this on the podcast. Yeah. Right. Like that's essentially what we watched happen with the last set of 35th stuff was that it was then looking dated, even though it was just as good of merchandise. Right. So it's something to think about that. I wish there was more content told to us, but sometimes you just got to celebrate things. And I think for the folks who had the opportunity to go do that, that's what they got to do. They got to go be happy and celebrate stuff. And I like that Jason Reitman kind of thanked the fans and said that they were sort of instrumental in making this all possible. That if fans hadn't stuck by Ghostbusters for 40 years, there wouldn't be 40 years worth of Ghostbusters content, And so it's kind of a thing to consider and think about that even when folks are not happy with all the content that's been put out over 40 years, the loyalty to the brand in general has been, strong enough that we get all this great stuff we get. I do wish that I got to try that pizza from the pizza truck, if only so that I could critique it. That would have been my one thing I would have come out of the event being like, well, I don't know about that pizza. I probably could have made better. But I'm a terrible person when it comes to pizza. So, I don't know. I also wondered how they made so much snow, but pulled it off. Well, as much as I feel like we spent, a very small amount of time on it, even though it was the official day of, the official event on the lot for Ghostbusters Day, I want to say to folks, like, if you want to see images or see, what this event looked like, probably the best places to go do so are to go look at the coverage that JD Raymer shot and shared with Extraplasm. I know that Yes Have Some put out about a 6-minute montage video that they have of their experiences at this event and some of what they got to do on the lot. And there's a ton of stuff out there from some of the other folks I mentioned. The LA Ghostbusters have some content. John Urkeba's got stuff posted you can take a look at. But, again, a lot of what was there was essentially a screening and an opportunity to then hang out and socialize in a context where people were eating marshmallow and marshmallow themed frozen desserts and pizza from a pizza truck and things like that, and taking a look at props. So not that much actual news to report on in that context in a weird way. That kind of seems weird to say because it was the official event on the lot, but I think it was more kind of an event for the folks who were there than it is something that we can reflect on a lot more of since we weren't. But yeah.
I report on like Ghostbuster socks being found at Walmart, and I found this hard to report on. Seriously.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying that to be like, you're like, I found it hard to report on. It just hurt my soul as much as you mean.
No,
like, it was
no.
Just,
yeah, it was
there's
just
not much more story to tell if you weren't there personally. I think
exactly. You know the props. You've watched the movie. We did post thanks to JD Raymer. We did feature the introduction by Jason Reitman, which was done really, really well there. Emotional speech there. Speaking of his father Ivan. But yeah, it was definitely it was fan centric. But yeah, put on by Sony. So it's a weird one. It's a weird one. But again, though, congratulations to everybody that got out there. It sounds like everybody had an amazing time. So
yeah, and I think that for folks who had an opportunity to go, it's a great chance to gather together and be with folks and celebrate the movie. I'm hopeful that as we move forward, we see some more synergy between fan franchises and fan communities and the lot. As Eric sort of talked about last week, he would love to see more of an emphasis on charity works that gets reported on at the end of each year. It would be kind of cool if we got to see more of a celebration happening on the lot on a regular basis, as opposed to the sort of ambiguity or confusion about will they or won't they. And I think that would have been something that in some ways may have made fans feel a little more secure in the last few weeks if they had known up front, like, hey, there's not going to be an event on the lot this year, or there will be, but it's going to be a small one. It might have been something that, I don't know, would have given fans less worry or ambiguity about things. Because I think I talked to a lot of people, and you may have too, who were sort of worried or sitting in the will they or won't they conversation about the 40th, And so
yeah.
I just kind of hope that we can create a more regularly recurring thing that happens with the Sony lot, because I think it's important to have that ongoing communication and connection, but we'll see. Well, I think we hit upon pretty much everything that happened for Ghostbusters Day. I don't think we left anything out, but if we did, I'm 100% sure somebody will email us, let us know. And then I will make sure we talk about it next week. But Jason, any sort of final thoughts you have about Ghostbusters Day 2024?
Yeah, I got some final thoughts here.
Do you want to share them?
I'd love to share them. Yeah, totally. So I think really Ghostbusters Day it was just the warm up, because let me tell you something. Coming up, it's the real anniversary. Ghostbusters 2 35th anniversary this coming week. Like, seriously. You can talk about, okay, yeah, Ghostbusters, great film, what have you there. Ghostbusters 2, that's the best one. That's the one that all you people out there love. No, I'm not, don't laugh. I'm serious. Ghostbusters 2 is the better film. I've been saying this for years.
I know you have.
It's celebrating it's celebrating its 35th anniversary this week. Also, another milestone moment, Ghostbusters the video game turning 15 years old. That's
true.
Pretty freaking cool. And just lesser extent, not nearly as big, I understand. Ghostbusters news, 15 years old. So
yes. So this is all like coming together this week. The real anniversary taking place.
All coming together. Play yourself Ghostbusters, the video game, the 2009 game, watch Ghostbusters 2, and buy yourself a brand new Ghostbusters News Anniversary T-shirt from our TeePublic store, which we're gonna be launching a brand new design. Hopefully, it's up by the time that this is online, but if it's not, it should be up this week. And it's designed by the one, the only Baducci Studios, Brendan Pierce. It's an awesome design there. We've got our mascot ghost holding a slime-covered cake, celebrating the 15th. And it's a cool design, and be on the lookout, too, for possibly some Challenger coins, patches, all that good jazz in the coming months.
Nice. Cool. I also know Brendan Pierce at Baducci Studios because I thank him every week for making Extraplasm's logo. So, Brendan is awesome, and I think his artwork is great, and I think it's fantastic that you are hitting your 15th anniversary, which I have to be honest, I had kind of forgotten that you were turning 15 this year.
I'm turning 15, everybody. Wild. I'm actually turning 40 this year, same as Ghostbusters. And I know you're older, but hey, you know what? You got invited to the Sony lot. I didn't, so I'm going to make you feel like garbage right here. When you hit 40, you're really old. When you get after 40, you're like decrepit. So,
all right.
Jim, I can't believe you can even get up in the morning, man.
I know. It's hard. It's very difficult at this point. My bones are brittle and they break in half if I push in the wrong direction. But, I think that it's really great that you've been doing Ghostbusters News for 15 years, and I'm excited that you are having your own little anniversary. I fully expect that you're going to announce, like, just the week that it's going to happen, that you're having an event in Canada at the Ghostbusters News lot.
yeah. We're the new Ghostbusters animated series coming soon in 2028. We're going to launch that. It's going to be on it's going to be on a very small network. The Canadian Zellers stores, they're going to bring those back, and we're just going to air Ghostbusters News, the television show, on the little television sets they have in the store. It's gonna be great. The security setup. It's really just gonna be me taking over the security setup, playing my videos. Yeah.
Well, if you ever do decide to have Ghostbusters News Fan Fest, I'll come.
We'll just take over next year's Buffalo event. It's gonna be fine. You're gonna dress up as me. I'm gonna dress up as you, and we'll say Ghostbusters News did it. So if I get any heat, they're just gonna come after you. It's gonna be fine.
That's because I'll be dressed as you, is what you're saying.
Exactly.
So that's fine. Yeah. I'll just tell them it was Extraplasm's fault, and they'll come back and get you.
All right.
And then what we can do is we can just both of us mutually blame friend of the podcast, JD Raymer. JD, I'm sorry if you're listening. This is what happens if you become the Extraplasm public appearance decoy, as I've been joking about for a while. But I do want to say, in all seriousness, I am very grateful that JD collaborated on the stuff that he shared with us for the event on the Sony lot. JD provided a ton of really great glimpses of it, and it seems like the folks who were there had a blast. So JD, thank you so much if you're listening for putting things out there and letting us share your coverage with folks who are listening to the podcast and who are viewers of Ghostbusters News. You're awesome. So to wrap things up here, you're going to have a fan fest in Canada. That's happening.
We're going to sell poutine. We're all going to have craft dinner. And then after we all get drunk on spiked maple syrup, we're going to all go shave a beaver.
That's awesome.
That's the Canadian
sounds
way.
Great.
Yeah.
Somehow we'll connect that to something paranormal. We'll say they're paranormal beavers and that the maple syrup is actually haunted. It came from a haunted forest, and that's why it's so boozy. I like this idea. Why aren't we doing this already? But I want to say thank you to you, of course, for coming on the podcast this week and for contributing and sharing your thoughts about the anniversary of Ghostbusters. I hope you had a happy Ghostbusters Day.
We're so off the rails right now. Maple syrup. I don't know what the hell we're talking about. Yeah, I had a great Ghostbusters Day. What are you talking about? You and JD got me coverage, man. That share feature on Instagram is perfect for lazy people like me. Because you guys can go out there and do all the work, and I just share it. I get the Instagram like, so it's great. It's great. Thank you to both of you for doing such a better job at doing Ghostbusters News than I did.
Well, I don't think that's true. I think that your job was to synthesize and to sort of take things that were out there happening and let people know about them, and that's what you did well, and it's what you generally do well, and why I tell people to come out to look at your coverage all the time, because you would find things that I never would. Like that I would have just missed in the day while I was standing around at the lot And I want to stress that like your role in a Ghostbusters Day, even when you're not with us, is incredibly important because you are the person cultivating and making sure that folks know about the stuff that's happening. The ability to sort of digest the day would be a lot harder if you weren't doing that work and spending all the time writing the coverage you're writing, making the videos you're making, etc. So if you're listening and you haven't looked at Jason's Ghostbusters Day coverage already over on Ghostbusters News for some reason, because you were like, I don't know, doing some sort of internet fast over the weekend, make sure you go take a look at what's out there for you in the terms of the coverage, because you did an amazing job and I'm so grateful for it. You do a great job all the time, but without you synthesizing so much of this stuff for people to easily access it, people would be way more clueless.
Yeah.
Every time I do this, you just brush it off. So I'm just going to say one more time, be a little less Canadian. Take a compliment.
I do an adequate job, I guess. I don't know.
You do a great job.
Whatever.
You do a great job, and that's why there were so many people standing on a New York City street in front of a firehouse celebrating a franchise they love, asking me where you were. So,
before you finish that, I thought I was the reason that everybody was actually standing there. I was like, what? Oh, me? Like, they were all waiting for me?
I think Dan and Buffalo might take that a little personally.
That was
they were kind of the reason.
Hey, I was in New York in March, right? And then just following, they had their biggest Ghostbusters Day yet, with people thinking, there may be a connection there. Maybe.
It may be.
Probably not. No, it's not. It's not. But congratulations to Buffalo and everyone at Hook and Ladder 8 for a phenomenal time. I cannot wait to see the number of what they actually made this year for the charity there, the Tunnel Tower. What's it called?
Yeah, the Tunnel to Towers Foundation. Yep. So we'll see. I'm hopeful to hear that they made a lot of money, and I think they probably did because they sold a lot of stuff. There was a lot of stuff that was sold out in terms of merch by the time the night was over, so we shall see. Well, Jason, I think that about wraps things up for Extraplasm this week, and I want to say thank you to you for coming on the show, for offering up your insights, for contributing as usual, for being fun to be around and an awesome person. And I mean, even when you don't take the compliments because you're Canadian, after 15 years of doing this, you should know that you are much beloved because of the number of people who asked about you and where you were in New York City. You do a great job of creating content and coverage, and I always value you coming on the show. I need to say thank you, always, as usual, to Brendan Pierce of Beducci Studios, who provides our logo and who's apparently also given you a logo for your merchandise for your 15th anniversary. And so apparently Brendan is running the universe. And I need to say thank you as well to vaporwave artist Magnavox, who provides our theme song each week, with the version of Ghostbusters that they produce.
And Jim,
as usual,
Jim.
Yes.
I have breaking news. Jim. You ready?
Okay. Yes.
You're great. This podcast is great. Thank you for having me on. It's been a wonderful time. I love celebrating Ghostbusters Day with you. We'll do it again soon.
Okay. Well, I appreciate
you're great.
that. Thank you.
I just want to let everybody know out there that if you're not listening to Extraplasm podcasts like you're doing right now, if you're not listening to them, you should really listen to them. He does a great job. He had Eric Reich on here last week. Ghost Core. The overseer, as I like to call him.
Yes.
Mr. President.
Ghostbuster.
Well,
Mr.
okay.
President.
That's kind of overselling it, but okay, it's fine. It's cool. He gets important people on here. So if you're not listening to Extraplasm like you are right now, be sure to listen to Extraplasm Podcast. Take it away, Jim. Let's close off this week's happenings.
Finally, of course, now that our interruptions are over and we have questioned the validity of this podcast, I want to say thank you to the regularly listening audience who were already hopefully listening, as Jason points it out that they should listen to the podcast. Without you, this would be a really weird experience of Jason and I talking to each other and then him trying to market to people who weren't already listening about a thing they should listen to. But I digress. I love everybody out there who's listening. It was so great to see so many of you at Hook and Ladder 8. And if I didn't see you there, if you were one of the people who didn't see me and didn't run into me and then said, I didn't see you, I'm sorry. Because there's so many people who I also didn't run into and then saw me afterwards and said, how do we not see each other? So Thank you for listening to the podcast each week. Thank you for contributing. If you have anything you want to share with the podcast, you can, of course, reach the podcast at extraplasmpodcast@gmail.com, Extraplasm on Instagram and X, and Extraplasm Podcast on Facebook or YouTube. Be well, be healthy, have fun, continue to celebrate Ghostbusters Day, even though it's over, because every day should be Ghostbusters Day. And as Ernie Hudson says each and every week,
try to have fun and always keep on busting. Take care.